Hello and welcome to episode 93 of the PC Gamer podcast. Today is the 4th of July, which means today is the day we were defeated by someone, I don't really know who, because I'm not very good at history. But today is also a sad day because this is the last PC Gamer UK podcast ever. Unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond our control, we're not going to be able to do them anymore. Our PC Gamer US cousins will continue, but we're here for the last one. But we will have something else for you that we're planning in our spare time, which we'll tell you more about at the end. And I'm gathered in the studio here today by many men, in fact, almost the entire team, to celebrate the death of the podcast. Let's go around the table. Tom?
Hello, I'm Tom Senior. I'm news editor, web editor, somewhere between the two.
Human editor. I am Rich McCormick, and I am associate editor. And hello.
My name is Chris Thurston, and I'm sad, but glad that we're all here for this moment.
And I'm Phil Savage, and I'm the news writer freelance person.
You're a staff writer in PC Gamer. You're it might not be official, but I think we can pretend that it is.
To be fair, I found out that I was a staff writer on the first time I was called that on the podcast as well. It's actually how you find out what your new job title is. Congratulations, Phil.
Promotion.
This is your first podcast, isn't it?
It is, yes.
So you're the reason that we're never ever doing it again.
No, I've killed it, I'm afraid.
No.
Gentlemen...
He hasn't actually killed it, internet. I just want to spare Phil. Yeah.
What's your favourite dead game series? A series of games that they don't make anymore.
Happy start.
As in glad it's dead or sad it's dead?
Sad it's dead.
I know. Me.
You don't need to stick your hand up. You can just talk freely. We're all friends here.
X-Wing something.
Yeah,
Some kind of
that's
X-Wing.
a good answer.
There you go. Done
Well
it.
done.
I win. I'm off.
That's it.
Take your
Slammed
moustache
it
and
on.
leave. Rich has a moustache for everyone listening. We'll
I
put a
do.
picture in the
It's
show
on my
notes.
face, and where it's meant to be, at least.
Mine would be No One Lives Forever, the Monolith spy open-ended FPS series that was very funny, and I like more than Deus Ex.
You like it more than Deus Ex?
I do. Come at me, internet.
As the internet would say, shots fired.
Indeed.
Why do you like it more than Deus Ex?
I guess maybe I always find Deus Ex kind of impenetrable. Like, I'm thinking because I haven't played either game since I was about 14 or whatever, however many years ago it was, probably less than that. But I thinking about North 2 specifically. Actually, I think it's a more fun take on the you can do a bit of stealth, you can do a bit of shooting, you can do a bit of hacking formula than Deus Ex, which I always found rather fiddly. And I really like the humour and the sort of tone. And it's funnier take on piss take of James Bond than Austin Powers is, actually, which is interesting given so indebted to all that stuff as well. I like everything about it, actually.
I would really like to see a Nolf with the Human Revolution style engine, with kind of cover-y, shooter-y things. And that kind of
I'd love a new Nolf, I'm not going to lie.
Nolf.
I like new Nolf, and I cannot lie.
Well,
Mine would probably be Little Big Adventure. Not necessarily because I think they'd continue to be good. I just think they'd be interesting and weird, and I think there's a space for that still.
I never played those, but late PC Gamer member Tom Francis was always a big fan.
At least you sound dead, as though you...
Yeah,
he is.
he is.
He's not dead. He's
It's
become
always
money now.
Tom Francis is my favourite discontinued. Tom, what's yours?
It would be Dungeon Keeper, I think. Only 2 games made. But at the same time, I'm a bit torn about it because they were so great. And I'm not sure that doing just the same thing again in a modern engine would really change anything about it. I feel like it's like The Office. I'm glad it died and just was what it was for that brief period.
When you say The Office, you do mean the TV show The Office, not actually our office.
Oh, no. Yeah, that will continue to exist after the podcast.
So you say, is it dead? We were there just now.
Yeah, Dungeon Keeper, I still would like a sequel.
Dungeon
I don't
Keeper,
get me
I
wrong.
still would. The Tom
I
Senior
still
story.
would. But at the same time, it's bittersweet. I'm glad it's had its moment. And
There's been loads of kind of, I'm trying to remember what one of them was called, but there's like 5 or 6 different ones that are fairly recently that have come out, like Game of Dwarves and that kind of thing, that have been tried to be kind of a spiritual successor. And
Yeah,
not really
Maya
been much.
as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Maya looks more impressive.
Yeah.
but-
Empire.
Empire.
But it's
was-
that kind of thing. None of them seem to be that. Take everything from it and just not really do as well.
There's
I
so
wonder
much
if-
personality in the
Yeah.
original games. Like the Bullfrog personality was really elevated those beyond simple management sims.
Yeah.
Like having those little sprites be hate each other and have rivalries and try and eat each other and stuff like that.
I actually think the games that try to do spiritual successors to Dungeon Keeper focus too much on the personality, because stuff like Empire is all filled with, aren't the orcs all wacky and silly, and the wizard's got a weird voice and all that sort of stuff. And it's, first of all, it fails because it's not funny, but also they're never as well balanced or tightly something as Dungeon Keeper was. Dungeon Keeper had really smart, simple management mechanics, but no one was really mimicked
tower defense before tower defense really took off in some of those levels where heroes, you knew where they were coming from. You'd build a warren full of giant rocks that would crush dudes.
I guess
you could kidnap them and then turn them onto your side, and it's just there's so many little touches to it that made them really fascinating.
I wonder if things like Orcs Must Die became almost like a kind of a successor in a way, because that did really well at that whole microcosm of the game.
That's true.
Huh.
Cool.
Interesting. Dungeon Keeper would have been my answer as well, so there's no point in me going now, unfortunately.
It's cheating, can't do that.
I know, but there we go. I couldn't think of another thing. I mean, most of the games I like have come back via Kickstarter. There are very few good game series that don't now exist in some form.
Yeah.
I still love More Elf Centauri. That is something that could do really well from a modern reboot.
Speedball. I'd really love Speedball 3. And then Rich and I could play it every single lunchtime. We get really frustrated and angry.
I'm impressed no one said Half-Life.
That's true, actually.
It's not dead, is it?
Yeah, I thought
it's
you
just
resurrected
sat somewhere.
that.
It must be. It has to be.
Shut up, internet.
Tom, what have you been playing recently?
Let's see. I've been playing. Let's talk about Gemini Rue, kind of futuristic film noir style adventure game from Wadgetai Games, where you play as two different people. One hard-boiled detective in an awesome coat who wanders around rain slicks, city streets, and neon lit, neighborhoods.
Does he rewire those?
No, he doesn't.
neighborhoods?
Well, no, he mostly just talks to people. And then there's a guy who has had his memory wiped, and he's in a weird clinical facility, and he's being tested for some nefarious, weird purpose that is quite menacing, really. He does tests every day and goes to sleep, and then wakes up and does another test. You get the feeling it's going towards something that involves him being turned into Soylent Green or something. I'm only like a few hours in, but you can switch between those characters at will and just kind of dip into the ranged streets and go talk to people, and then come back into the facility and try and figure your way out there. And eventually the two plot lines, I imagine, will tie together in some way. But I'm still working towards it. But I'm mostly just soaking up the atmosphere. But all I need is a trench coat and for it to be raining. And so much of what makes me happy is already in it. So it doesn't take much more for me to really like it. And it's still an adventure game with fewer puzzles, thankfully. I'd rather have more adventure games like the old Blade Runner game where you go around talking to people. And it's actually a game more about exploring the people there rather than like putting the hexagonal object in the hexagonal thing and twisting it in a certain way, and then reading the wind and then turn that into a number code that will get you into the next bit. That stuff really frustrates me, but like the pure character stuff, those short one-shot adventure games, I think one of the things I'd like to see more from gaming in the future generally.
It's an indie game that was created by a guy called Joshua Neuenberger. Is that right?
I have no idea.
Okay, I was going to ask you if he'd announced what he was working on next, because Gemini Rue came out last year at some point, didn't it? Early last year.
It's been around for a long time. It was around cause I remember looking ages ago when I first joined PC Gamer, looking at it and finding it for downloader, because he was talking about it. It used to be called Boryokudan Rue, and he sensibly changed the name because
that's the name of the kind of evil police force that hunts the people around the galaxy.
Yeah, and he said it looked amazing. All he showed at that time was a screenshot, but you just kind of saw that and went, "Oh, I want to be there."
Yeah, that's right.
I've actually played it yet, so I should do.
Yeah, it's worth it.
You've also been playing Company of Heroes 2.
I have been playing Company of Heroes 2. Getting into the multiplayer, which is actually really exciting. Better than the single player, which is kind of frustrates me because it feels so fiddly, the second game, in a way that the first game didn't. Because it's so much micro now in the second game. Every single unit has 2 or 3 different abilities they can activate at different times. And when it comes to balance, it comes down to which abilities you use at the right time. So it's about kind of esports level micro. And I think it's actually, they've taken what they wanted to do with Dawn of War 2, and what they said about Dawn of War 2 is have a small number of squads, but they wanted people to play it like an esport. So they wanted people to be doing micro-precise times in order to execute manoeuvres. But I think they've carried that through to a much bigger scale in which you have 20 units instead of 4. And it's almost it's too much. It's just too much stuff they put into it. And it's that clutter that has kind of made it so hard to get into. But once I've actually started playing online and playing competitively, the old patterns start to emerge. They kind of the old, oh, this is the counter to that, and this is a hard counter. This is not such a good counter, because it's not as black and white as StarCraft 2, for example. There are gradients as to how effective units are when they face other units, and the way to actually face down another force is to roll with combined forces. So you have a HMG that's supported by a sniper, and then you have a mortar 2 streets back, and you kind of set up these patterns across the board. And you start to recognise the old company of heroes in the new one, and you start to realise it's actually a very serious, good strategy game in there somewhere. But I don't know, because Rich, you reviewed it. I wonder if you had any similar experiences.
My experience with the multiplayer, yeah, I mean, you might probably played it more than I ended up doing in the end, but I found that I really enjoyed the competitive games you had. You had a lot more competition, a lot of sense of using everything you've been given and actually needing to kind of scrape your way through. Whereas in single player, you feel like you pretty much have infinite resources, and it's weird being normally in games you're the underdog, and you're not here. You're the overdog. You're the person, the big dog.
Top dog.
Just uber dog.
Yeah. And you can just call in more men all the time. And so if you ever get anything kind of pulled, like if a unit is pulled apart, you just add more men to them. And the amount of times when I'd be playing the single player campaign, and it would say, give me an objective. There's one where I have to encircle a town. I don't know if it's spoilers or not, but you have to encircle a town.
Spoilers for World War II, which is well recorded.
And you can move in 2 different areas around the town. Or you can just punch up one side, then come back around and do the other side. And I did that. I moved all my forces in one go because I couldn't be bothered otherwise. It's so, like you say, so much micro flicking back and forth. It's just taxing.
It's because for heavy machine guns, you define the very arc which they cover. So you tell them to go somewhere, then you define their arc. And you're doing all these tiny double bits of clicking.
And smoke grenades and all that are super powerful. So I ended up just doing that. And then at the end of it, this massive force rolled straight through the left-hand side, which I wasn't defending. And then the whole idea was to stop them getting out. And then the civilians who did get out, technically, I stopped enough of them getting out that I still won. But there was 5 German tanks still stood on the left-hand side, or tanked on the left-hand side, and they were just having a nice time on their own. I wasn't attacking them, had no way of killing them. But the game was like, congratulations, you won the mission, even though these tanks were just pootling in little circles, looking for me, even though I was on the other side of the map. And single player doesn't have that kind of sensation of success really very often. There's very, very few missions where you come out of it and go like, yes, I did that. You either scrape through with the skin of your teeth and you feel a bit like, well, did I really win that? Or you actually retreat. Like most of the first 4 levels, you win when you disappear off the map and run away.
I wonder if RTS single player campaigns in general, I never find very satisfying. Like there's a few I've always felt like StarCraft 2s were really good.
Yeah.
Because they give you the opportunity to be OP in a way that you've chosen. I love the way that you can mutate different units in StarCraft 2 into ridiculously powerful versions of themselves.
And it's the sensation as well is that they've picked up a different gimmick each time. I mean, it's a reductionist kind of view, but they picked a different gimmick and made a level around the gimmick, which is, Company of Heroes has the amount of times in the single player when I play a mission, I couldn't get through it on the first go, and I just go, okay, well, I'll just either overwhelm them with men, just keep throwing conscripts at them, which has no real downside, or I'm just going to build 3 T-34 tanks and just roll straight up the middle of it. Like, they can't kill me, and if they can, I'll just have more men at the end of it. I understand the concept that they want to tell the story of being this unstoppable fist crushing through Europe, but actually playing that isn't that much fun. The reason I gave it 80 and the reason I gave it such a high score was mainly for the theatre of war stuff, the extra missions where they focus in on one thing, destroy things with the Katyushas, or 2 of you push together as a unit and actually crush someone else, and that feels tense and tight, and it feels like you're using the resources you have well, rather than just going, oh, how should I kill these people today? And the multiplayer has that as well, where you have to kind of sound your way out and feel the way through how to actually win. But then also when I played the multiplayer at the beginning, it was just everybody had a shitload of mortars and snipers, and you couldn't get anywhere near them because they would just mortar and snipe you to death.
It's because single player tries to teach you how to counter mortars and stuff, but unless you just played a load of multiplayer, you don't actually know which is sometimes it's a flamethrower in certain circumstances, sometimes it's a sniper, and sometimes it's just an artillery barrage. But you get to know what's good for which point when you play, because so much is dependent on the terrain as well. So if a flamethrower squad can get close because of the way these convoluted streets, then you'd use them because they're cheaper than a sniper, etc.
Yeah. And things like the mortars that you can get, they can sit basically anywhere and drop death. Basically.
Like howitzers are just the range is the entire map. So, which reminds me of Super Commanders 2, both sitcoms actually, where if someone builds a howitzer or a massive artillery device in their base, then everyone's a bit fucked, really.
It makes life not much fun as well in Subcom as well. When you are just pinned down, like your whole life becomes around. It's not being destroyed, but it's just being ground down constantly, which means that I don't know. Yeah, it's not particularly fun to play against, and sometimes, and I think that's part of the problem with Gemini Heroes. Really, like the fact that I was feeling satisfied when I'd win sometimes in Theatre of War, less satisfied when I win in single player because it was such a Pyrrhic victory each time, and then also I wasn't actually having that much fun doing it. But you can kind of see the technical achievement, and also when everything does interlock properly in the multiplayer, it can be great. But.
Interesting.
Do you feel like it represents the harrowing nature of the Russian front in World War II? And that's a worthwhile goal that justifies it not being that much fun a lot of the time when you win the missions?
The story's like weirdly shit. Like, like it's kind of... With the cutscenes, there's loads of cutscenes in the game, and they tell the story of, I can't remember what his name is now, Lieutenant Commander something, who ends up basically becoming a journalist instead. He gets pulled off the front because all his men die. But they haven't told this story through like stills, and they haven't told it through like in-engine scenes. They told it through kind of, it looks like an Xbox shooter from 2003 was how I described it in the review. Like really, really clunky, horrible looking character models with no facial expressions whatsoever, doing all this kind of... There's one bit where this guy, the guy you play as, or you sort of play as, is watching kind of the Stalingrad attack, and then the men run back, and he says to the guy manning the machine gun, who's obviously no step back, he says, "Kill the guys that that are retreating." And you go, "Oh my god, I can't believe this is happening!" And then the guy who's on the machine gun looks over to the commander, goes, "Okay," turns the machine gun around and starts smiling slightly, and then going, "Dug, dug, 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 dug," and you're just going, like your mouth opens and your eyes open, because that's what humans do when they're shocked. But the way this engine does it is to just make you look like you're, it's a really, really, and that continues all the way through. Like there's the story itself, I guess, is kind of poignant because it tells us obviously the story.
I guess it's kind of poignant.
The poignant story is told by Jerry Anderson.
But you really have to punch through this terrible presentation. Again, the voice acting is okay, I guess, but there's so much really bad presentation in it. And you told this story, which is a truly terrible story of people getting killed and complete disregard for human life just to achieve their aims. But it's just completely undone by having this terrible presentation. I don't understand how or why they decided to do that.
I wonder if it was, it was the last days of THQ that funded it, and wonder if they just had a low budget to spend on getting an external company to produce those cutscenes.
It's a weird tone as well because it says to you, like Izakovich, this is your guy's name. It says like Izakovich saw some terrible horrors during the war. Men throwing their lives away. Generals telling them where to go. He can't believe how terrible it was. And these little kind of pre-mission briefings, and then it goes. These generals telling people to throw their lives away. And they go, okay, now tell them to throw their lives away. So you are the general that Zakovich is going, oh, the generals are terrible. And you are the man who is literally killing people, throwing body after body after body, these things, while you're watching cutscenes telling you how terrible that you have been and how, the things that, like shooting the retreating men is a game mechanic. If you have when you have conscripts in the mission and they retreat by pressing T, if they're a bit shattered, they can run home. And if there's a guy at home who has a gun and will shoot anyone that comes back, and as he does that, a bar fills up, and when the bar's filled up to the top, you get penal battalions, which are better conscripts. So the action of actually shooting retreating people is supposedly terrible, historically terrible, and morally terrible. It does give you better stuff. It's a weird. Also, that's kind of bugged out as well. There's so many times because the commissar who appears will often stand behind the building that he's supposed to appear at, and then your men will run back, and he'll go, "You are not allowed to run, but you're not allowed to retreat. No retreat. I'll shoot you." And he tries to shoot them, but because there's a building in the way, he just goes like, can't quite do it. So you have to actually manually move the men around to the other side of the thing, then make them retreat again. Then he shoots them, and then you kind of feel like, what kind of monster am I? A, retreating these people, B, manoeuvring them into a pistol bullet, and then so you go, yay, now your brothers are better because
but it's
they're tougher.
Justified because you've got better stuff.
But it's justified game mechanically, and then it's completely unjustified morally in the story.
The weird thing about the commissar as well is that you'll get a message saying, the commissar is here, no, step back. And then it'll say, the commissar is gone. Then 5 minutes later, he'll come back because he's gone for a cup of tea. So everyone is okay to retreat and recover now. And then
Don't retreat while I'm gone.
Before he's finished his coffee, we need to get out of there, man. Because he's coming out with his pistol, and we're not. It's not going to be good.
Even though they have guns as well, they could just shoot the guy. But like, I didn't realise until halfway through the game, and no point is it really explained how this works. This system of like, you see the bar fill up because it also fills up when the conscripts do good things. So when they kill enemies, is why it fills up. And I was kind of loosely aware that you get better. You start off with basic conscripts, and they become, I can't remember the call, but some technical conscript type that are slightly better and have grenades. And then the last one's a penal battalions who have like anti-tank grenades. And you want to get them as soon as possible. But I didn't realise that retreating, and I never had to retreat at all. Like once or twice, 2 men would run away from the edge, just off the edge of the screen, and I'd be like, oh, well, I'll bring in a new conscript squad. And there's no kind of sensation that you have to retreat. The only reason you would retreat is to get better stuff. And then the retreating is treated as such a terrible thing in the story.
I mean, there's a few sides on that. I would always, like, it sounds like it doesn't work, but I don't think building a game mechanic that essentially rewards the player in order to encourage behavior that's accurate to history is a bad thing, necessarily. Like, in order to make things happen that would happen in history, it sounds a bit forced.
Yeah, like, I never used it until I realised that you could get better things to use it.
And likewise, being pushed towards, being told off for playing the game in inverted commas correctly is not necessarily invalid by default, right? Like, it's possible to use that for effect. In the most effective way to play this is also the way it's going to tell you is morally wrong. But I would say that's interesting rather than just broken.
I can't understand what you mean, but it's such a weird thing that you're playing as Zarkovich, who is this journalist or lieutenant, like not a kind of commander role at any point, and it's fairly obvious, like. You are him. It kind of says you are him a few times, but it doesn't really explain you are him. And then you just suddenly become a general. Like, it's just a sense of, again, ludonarrative dissonance, where you are...
You've got to say it that way.
You can't say any other voice.
But yeah, you are this guy. Oh, by the way, you're some other guy, some other general. But you're still this guy, the journalist, who is writing stories about how bad the things he's doing are.
But being a guy in any RTS is a weird idea because you're a floating god monster, aren't you? You're clicking on people and moving them around. Like you're not embodying anyone.
I'd like to see that floating god monster in the cutscenes though, instead of this guy.
Go there.
Just an enormous hand.
The dungeon keeper hand slapping his Russian troops.
But it wasn't like I was kind of, I don't know, like I understand what you mean, Chris, about it's okay to, like, Dishonored does it acceptably, but
ish.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't gain anything from it. It wasn't kind of making me ask interesting
questions. If it's not
questions.
effective, it's not effective. It's more a principle thing.
Yeah,
it's not,
it wasn't
it's not
asking
bad
me
in principle.
questions.
It's just,
It was just going, this is just weird. Like, why is this? I don't know. But I kind of I griped about a lot of it in the review, but it just seems to be the rest of it can be so good when it all comes together. Like this kind of multi-tentacled beast comes together. It's really good, but
your interpretation of the Eastern Front is very different.
It's a flying god monster's got in my head.
Chris, what have you been playing?
I've been playing, there's an indie game I came across that I wanted to talk about called I'm Scared, that people might have played already because it was recommended at GDC by Paul Pantine and Terry Kavanagh, who do the Free Indie Games blog. But I came across it recently and really liked it, and it's really short, and people should play it. It's a kind of downloadable horror first-person exploration game, kind of in the Slender or Hide type mold, by guys I've never forgotten. But it takes about 20 minutes to play. But its basic principle is when you download it, there's an executable in a zip, and you extract the executable to a folder wherever on your computer. And then when you load up the game for the first time, it says, make sure you've extracted it from the zip, or this isn't going to work, because it's not, even though it's only one file, it needs to sit in its own folder on your hard drive for reasons that kind of become clear. And you play it, and it's kind of like sort of super pixelated, kind of like Hide. If you haven't played that, I'll put a link in the show notes. And you kind of wander around an area, and there's sort of blood in a cupboard, and you explore and you find a key and go down some stairs, and it's kind of spooky, but kind of not directly scary. And then shit happens. There's a jump scare that I won't spoil, at which point you're kind of booted back to the desktop immediately. And the executable has been joined by two new files in the folder, one of which is a note, and one of which is just a blank black JPEG. And then you boot up the game again, and it's different. It's changed completely, and it's a different game now, and you're in a different place, and the rules have changed, and you're asked for like a password that's in one of the documents that is spawned in the folder, and the game kind of proceeds. And it's like it does this 4 or 5 times in terms of getting to a certain point and kicking you for whatever reason. And I won't spoil it because it's worth playing through, and it's quick enough that people should just play it. But it's a nice attempt. There's a few things I like about it. One is it feels like a real attempt to do a kind of software that people could write a creepypasta about. I don't know if you ever read Creepypasta, which is a kind of wiki for horror stories that people kind of piece together. And there's all these completely urban legend stories about haunted software, like haunted copies of Zelda or Morrowind. There's a famous Morrowind one.
The one who chased the invisible like dwarf who chased people around and stabbed them in the back because they stood still too long.
Yeah, and that they bleed into the real world somehow. And the stories always end with like, I've got to go. My IRC log is trying to kill me. And then he was never seen again. This IRC client was dead 7 years ago.
Sometimes if you log into QuakeNet, you can still hear him screaming.
Yeah, exactly. It's effective enough at kind of like that being horror game, like that it's sort of having this sense that it's extending beyond its bounds. It doesn't do any kind of hacking your computer stuff. It's kind of
Or does it?
Exactly, or does it?
No, it doesn't.
But I really liked it. And the other thing I really liked about it is, for the most part, you kind of know what you need to do, and it's just about exploration and finding items and the puzzle. There's the puzzles and the puzzle changes bit by bit. But there's one sequence in it that I really liked, where you are being hunted in an underground car park, and every time you get caught, which is usually kind of terrifying every time because the way it's presented, the XE quits and you have to load it again and start again. But there's a puzzle, and in order to escape that area you have to solve a puzzle with really no guidance whatsoever apart from like trial and error figuring it out. And I really like that as opposed to the thing that's been settled on by a lot of these games like Slender and Hide, which is the kind of find 8 things structure. You're going to be chased around these woods by the Slender Man until you find all 8 notes, and every time you find a note he'll get faster. Is okay, but you know exactly what's expected of you, so there's no intellectual challenge. Like, you're not being challenged to really keep your cool. It's just, and Amnesia suffers for this as well in a way. Although Amnesia does have puzzles, but like often in a game like Amnesia, you're fine as long as you keep moving, right? Like as long as you're always moving in a direction and you don't get too scared, you'll probably find the notes, you'll probably do this, you'll probably do that. Whereas in this, the nature of the puzzle is such that you need to think about what you're being, like the sounds you're hearing and what they correspond to in the environment and what the game wants you to do. And you have to puzzle something out. Like, what is it that's going to basically unlock the door that lets you out? And thinking about it and then slowly figuring it out, but then having to go back in to try it in that kind of horrible environment is actually really effective as a horror mechanic, because it means that even though you get your breather of the, oh, fuck, I've been caught, you're kind of afraid that maybe the thing you're trying is wrong, and that you'll continue to get caught forever. And you know what I mean? Like, you've led yourself down a blind alley. Yeah. Whereas in Slender, you can't really get that feeling because you know that you need to get all 8 notes, right?
It's just stealing yourself to...
Yeah, just stealing yourself to do it, as opposed to, in this, it's possible to steal yourself to do something that's wrong. And I really like that as a kind of... Like, when I figured it out and I got out, that was a real kind of like, oh, thank God I was right, because I've been trying to do this one thing for like half an hour. But
it's kind of like Dark Souls in that way.
Potentially, yeah. You can be convinced of your own that you're doing the right thing, even though you're actually doing the wrong thing, but you're not being, I guess, hunted in quite the same way.
No.
But it's really effective. So I recommend people play that. I would say it takes 20 minutes. It takes 20 minutes if you don't get stuck at the bit I was talking about, in which case it'll probably take you much longer. But no, I'll put a link in the show notes.
That sounds really cool. Who made it?
I've forgotten his name. I could guess, but I don't want to.
Well,
it's all lowercase in one word, isn't it, as well? I'm scared.
Yeah, the game is called I'm Scared, and it's all lowercase, all one word, and there's no apostrophe in I'm. It's just like I'm scared. I'm scared.
Indie games.
It's very indie games. Yeah. But it's good. And yeah. The other thing I've been playing and finished, I kind of wanted to add something to what I said about Sleeping Dogs.
You talked about it last podcast a bit, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
You talked about running a man over accidentally.
and feeling kind of gutted about it, yeah. I did. And I really liked it-ish. And I finished it. And it's got its pluses and its minuses. And I think one thing it does do effectively, actually, is build from that sense I initially had of horror when I ran someone over, when later on you're throwing a dude onto a rack of swordfish or just gunning people down in the street, or the way you deal with final dude in that game is really fucking horrible. Yeah. Like, that game is very, very, very violent. And it worked, actually. Like, I was like, this feels like a curve in a way that it isn't gratuitous, but not totally unearned. However, as that game wore on, I got increasingly pissed off by its presentation of women. Yeah. And I don't think it's been called to task enough for that. That is a sexist as hell video game. Like, and I think partly it's kind of knowing in that it's trying to reflect something of certain kinds of gangster culture that I don't know enough about to qualify it in terms of, this is just realistic or some bullshit like that. But there's, the main way this manifests, partly in that there are no active, there's one active female character in it with any kind of power. This sort of older triad, Redpole, who's, she's the only female, and that makes a plot point out of the fact that she's the only woman to kind of go to that rank, and it's a rare moment. And there's another character, someone's mum, who is a kind of rare example of a kind of huge woman in games. Someone who doesn't fit the kind of normal video game female template, who is actually kind of awesome, but kind of one note in what she does to people, and that she fucks people up. But that's kind of, but the rest of it is like dreadful. Like, it builds a mechanic around this girlfriend system, where every now and then Wei Shen, the main character, will meet a woman, and you can phone her up, and you complete a kind of optional series of mini missions. That when you finish them, two things happen. There's a kind of fade to black, pan away sex scene, and you get a new thing. Like, you get a new thing shows up on the minimap. So the first girl you sleep with unlocks the ability to see health shrines on the minimap, and the second one is like lock boxes, and the third one is jade statues.
So what we're establishing in this podcast is that sending young men to their deaths against their own side gets you new stuff, and also sex with women gets you new stuff.
Yeah, but it's like shortcuts to the game's collectible system, and there's
so it's not even good stuff.
Yeah, and none of these female characters are presented as anything other than a kind of objective to be completed. Most of them are entirely discarded from the story.
Most of them just disappear and they're never heard from again. Once
you've beaten their missions, and
you have their rewards.
And there's an awful, like, I like that this character is complicated and that he has really bad things about him, but without spoiling too much, one of his motivating factors of why he's doing what he's doing, why he's an undercover cop, why he's trying to take down the triad, and why he hits certain kinds of, is what happens to his sister in the story. This is, I don't even really spoil it by saying that, I don't think it's a spoiler.
It starts
First
off
half
by
now.
It's quite, it mentioned it pretty early that his sister was a drug addict and got roped into prostitution, and he hates that entire side of triad gangster life, so he won't do it. Like, and he'll work harder to shut down prostitution rings and human trafficking and things, and that's the kind of thing that gives him an angle. And yet, there's a mission where you're encouraged to do all of these girlfriend missions. Because you get a thing at the end, and they're there on your phone, and you can just do them. And if you do two of them, the girls find out, and apparently you've been cheating. But the way the chronology of the game doesn't make very much sense. Like, there's no real clear timeline for when things happen. So I'd actually finished one girl's entire mission set, and it never says like, "Oh, I'm your girl," but you're in a committed relationship now. And then I finished the other girl's mission set, and then got the optional mission where they find out that you're cheating on them, and which is bullshit for a whole bunch of reasons. And then you go, and then you can confront one, and you get a mission objective which is like confront Tiffany. And I thought that I'd have some kind of choice about, like, I walked into that going like, she's angry at me, but this is a whole misunderstanding. Like, I didn't know this was like what was the game was telling me. I didn't know this is what I was doing.
To know where health shrines were.
Yeah, I just want to know where the health shrines were, and like, honest. And also, I don't care that she's dating a new guy now, and you meet her, and she's because a guy tips you off that she's cheating on you, but you've been cheating on her or whatever. And you walk up to her, and he goes berserk, like, it's like, "I'm son on you, motherfucker! You better fuck off my woman!" I'm like, I don't want to play that guy. Like, I'm okay with the swordfish shit, but like, giving me no, this is maybe a weird thing about presentation of content in games, but giving me no choice over that part of his character made me feel like a complete prick, and made me kind of want to almost stop playing it. Like, and then later on you find this whole, God, it gets even worse. So there's a whole character who's kind of this movie mogul who pimps out these actresses, who are famous actresses and singers in Hong Kong, but he kind of pimps them out on the side for gangsters. And they make a whole plot point about what a brilliant guy Wei Shen is. Who I will have to mention has just done that thing I fucking hated, the yelling at a woman for no apparent reason stuff. Make a whole plot point out of the fact that he gets sent this actress as a reward for doing something. She shows up kind of teary in his room, and he sends her away. And it's like, you don't get to play the kind of like, look at this glorious kind of figure of magnanimity and being better than all the other men in this corrupt world thing, when you encourage the player to chase down every woman as an objective, and also you've made that same character act really inconsistently with the plot in every other way. It's just a huge unnecessary black spot in that game as far as I'm concerned.
Do you think there's a way to do romance in games or dating in games, which doesn't, by measure of gamifying it, turn it into an objective to be attained.
Yes, I think it is. I think there's always a sense of that, and obviously like giving people gifts to inflate a affection meter so that they'll progress to the next stage of the relationship is a really crude way of doing it. But it really is about how things are presented and written, not and how those characters respond. Like there's one of my favorite, and those systems can be subverted in interesting ways as well. Like there's a really I might spoil something minor in Dragon Age 2. It's a very, very minor spoiler, but the game's quite old now, so I'll go for it. There's a character in Dragon Age 2, Aveline, who is a female companion from quite early in the game. And, in Dragon Age 2, you have little icons for different dialogue options. So this is to help you. So this is a funny response. This is an aggressive response. And there's like a golden heart that indicates this is a flirtatious response. And from the moment you meet her, or at least a certain point after you meet her, you're capable of flirting with her and kind of using all those gamey relationship mechanics that you would for any other character in the game. And this pursues to a point where you go on a brilliant quest to set her up with someone that she likes, because it turns out she just doesn't fancy you at all. And tough, you can't romance her. Like you can try, but the game doesn't work. And how you play that, again, quite gamey. You basically take the guy she likes on patrol in such a way that their paths converge, and they just do it as this kind of romantic comedy interlude in the game. But you're given the option at all points in that to keep trying to turn it in your favor until someone just tells you to stop being a dick, which I really like. It's a really nice use of having a gamey mechanic for relationships, like the flirt button, and making its usage by the player something that's actually charged and mean. You know what I mean? Because there are plenty of people who gamify relationships in real life. And what it sends up really effectively is the notion that if I just keep doing this thing that I'm told will work,
everyone inevitably wants to have sex with me.
I will get what I want. Whereas the truth is, actually, no, people have some autonomy, or lots of autonomy. Actually, they have autonomy. And, and you should probably respect that, you asshole wizard, is the kind of the thrust of that. So I don't think by default, I don't think games are incapable of doing this smart.
I also don't see the problem with, like you said, is it a problem that, that things are gamifying? I don't see the problem with gamifying relationships in a game, because everything in a game is gamified. Like, it's the definition
tautology,
of...
Richard, tautology hour.
like I understand that, reductionist kind of thinking is like Chris was saying, that if you just keep piling things and gifts on people, then they end up loving you. I think like Mass Effect is a good example. Like, that is gamification of relationships. That is, if you say the right thing in the right time, the person will love you. But it's the equality of it. Like, you can do it as a woman or as a man. Yeah. Both sides. You can romance someone who, like Chris says, is an autonomous character, and you can present, because you are being clever, but the character that's written is also presenting the side that the person likes. So if you're romancing someone who likes you being authoritative and making decisions, that person will react well to you being authoritative, making decisions. If you'd like someone who wants someone a bit meeker and a bit nicer, than male or female, like, you can do that as well. It's a game of, it's gamification, but it's gamification that cuts both ways. It sounds like Sleeping Dogs is not, because you can't.
It's just an absolute, and you always succeed. There's no choice involved. The game itself doesn't have dialogue options or even choices in the plot. But at the same time, everything about the system and where those things are presented says do these things, because the bonuses you get are probably more substantial than the bonuses for almost any side mission in the game. It's really useful to know where that stuff is on the minimap. And you are given no choice about how you treat those people or whether you choose to follow up on them or anything. Like Grand Theft Auto 4 had a girlfriend system where you could phone someone, but it actually became a persistent attachment to your character. Like when you met someone through the online dating thing, they were then always in your phone book, and you could take them out and whatever. And it didn't add anything to the game really, but it was consistently realized that it gave you the freedom to form your own attachments. Like I remember when I finished Grand Theft Auto, I was dating this girl, and I phoned her up and went out bowling and crashed the car, and she went through the windscreen and died. and I could have loaded a save, but that was kind of like, oh shit.
Oh,
like,
Christopher.
I'm really bad at driving. That's the moral of the story. But that was, systems led, and it came from the game itself, and it was dynamic, and it kind of, obviously it's not a sufficient relationship model to make it a relationship game, but it's still kind of like, oh hey, I attached myself to this NPC because of a system that was there, and then a story happened, and I have a story to tell now. Whereas the Sleeping Dogs thing is like, Wei Shen will always be an aggressive, demanding, protective asshole, jealous asshole to this one girl, because that's how they wrote it, and you're given no choice, or and you're heavily incentivized to do it, so you just do it, and it's awkward and
I agree with Chris, because I reviewed Sleeping Dogs and found it to be there's definitely an undercurrent of nastiness in that game. It's not just about the sexism, but about the violence and about every single character you meet, and the way that they try and reflect cool and the way they try and show different lifestyles that isn't clever enough to be ironic in the way that GTA might be. It's never a send up. It's almost like at times an endorsement of the lifestyle. I felt like it walked a fine line and fell off into shit, the shit puddle, quite commonly. And Wei himself I hated him. By the end of the game, I absolutely hated him. I didn't understand his motivations at all.
But you don't think you're meant to hate him by the end of the game?
No, I think you're supposed to think he's cool.
Well, I think they really deliberately try and set up. Like, you get loads of reports that suggest that he's been responsible for pretty bad things in the past, and you're supposed to see him as kind of pretty divisive. But the way the game ends and the way it resolves all the conflicts is kind of universally everyone wins. So there's no if they're setting him up for a fall, spoiler alert, I suppose that fall doesn't happen, at least not in a satisfactory way.
No, he's never. I mean,
he never gets his comeuppance.
No, I think so. I don't mind that, but if I'm actually playing this person, it makes such a big difference as to if I can't express
some part of yourself, some sense of agency through him.
And if this thing that's supposed to be represented to me is a monster, and it's just relentlessly a monster, and it showed in a way that just the way that the violence is framed, it's like, look how fucking awesome this is, so exuberant and so hyper violent, that I just don't buy into that, and it's distanced me so much from Wei as a character that I never even got that from Nico, who does awful things. Grand Theft Auto 4, but he made sense as a person. I could kind of see angles into that character that Wei just didn't have at all.
Yeah,
I kind of disagree with that, but I think I would agree with the broader point. I did find myself getting on board with that game's transition into violent revenge quest. I like Hong Kong action cinema, and that's obviously what it's massively indebted to.
Yeah.
And when it became a hyper-violent martial arts movie, I kind of dug it in a way, and there's a sequence towards the end where you basically goes apeshit, and I felt like it had kind of earned that. Even though the acting isn't great, and the but I felt like I was kind of on board with that side of it. I was going to say, actually, I can give a good example of what pissed me off about its presentation of women thing that's actually maybe a bit neater than just talking about the relationships in general, in that there's an animation they've done for Wei walking with a woman, and it happens the first time when you date the first woman you date, and that sets up quite gently, and it's quite sweet, and you go into this level where you walk around a park together, and he's got his arm around her, and they kind of walk around together, and it's quite okay, it's interesting they animated that so that these two characters can walk touching each other, which is rare in sort of NPCs. Mm-hmm. And it's isn't it sweet they've done that? But actually just a standard animation for whenever Wei is walking with a woman. Mm-hmm. So later on, he does it again. He walks into a karaoke club and introduces himself to the hostess, and she says, "Oh yeah, the karaoke room's just this way." And he puts his arm around her and steers her into the karaoke room.
Did you visit any of the massage parlours?
No, that's just the fade to black buff sex thing, isn't it?
Oh god, this game gets worse and worse.
This was the worst part for me about the depiction of women. It's okay, you got these relationship problems, which Chris points out really well, but there's a buff that you go into a massage parlour, and it's highly implied that it's a prostitute. So you go in, it's a fade to black, and he puts his arm around and goes, "Well, let's go, baby," and then turns up a few minutes later, and now you earn more points for killing people, because that's the buff that you get.
your face meter increases faster, isn't it?
Yeah,
Which
that's
means
right.
that
you do more violent things to people.
No, it means that you shock people with how awesome you are with greater frequency.
I hate it so much.
There's a really unfortunate choice of word there.
Yeah, I was going to say, and then the kind of the nadir of this is with the arm around someone animation is later on. There's a mission where you got to entertain an American rapper who's in town, and you take him to a club and you sit him down in the club, and then the objective is find girls. And so you go back into the dance floor and you walk up to the highlighted woman and press Y, and Wei will say something like, "Hey, you want to party with my friend?" And then he's a big guy, Wei, will aggressively put his arm around a woman and then just steer her into this kind of private booth and sit her down. And then you go and collect more women in this way, you're fucking Ollivander from Pikmin, like sexist Ollivander, just and it's because in a way
Ollivander looks after the Pikmin,
I suppose, but
he throws them at monsters so they get eaten.
He's not good at.
They die en masse.
He uses the Pikmin, Like, and the problem is, like, obviously, in a way, you can argue, no, there are totally people who act like that in real life, and there are totally parts in the world where that's kind of, not acceptable, but where it's
You don't have to play as them, though.
Yeah.
But part of the problem is that this game is going to be played by 13-year-old boys, and does it convey the message to those 13-year-old boys that women are things to be collected?
Yeah,
and it sounds like it does.
I was thinking about, like, I played The Last of Us on console recently, but the sensation of, like Tom was saying before, about not wanting to play as the guy who's a prick, and there are several prickish moments you do when you're playing as Joel in that, but there's still got a sensation of, you understand his motivation, you understand why he's doing these things, and you can kind of see everything he's coming from. And although you kind of think he tortures people and does terrible things to people, but obviously you don't agree with these things, you can still see where they come from. And I think it's that the disconnect between understanding what they're doing and why they're doing it, and then having no concept of just, like you say, just basically being a blank canvas that cool things are being thrown onto and stuck to.
It's kind of, I feel like games should be able to show sexism and show racism, because, like, society is sexist and society is racist, and if you're going to present realistic scenarios, you're going to have to acknowledge that. But it's kind of the line between showing those and kind of putting you in there, and in some way expecting you to be entertained by it in a way that is more shallow, or
I think there's an issue that obviously the entire game suffers from being designed with the male gaze, right? Like the whole sleeping dogs is really kind of what this comes down to. Is and there's nothing to say that games have to have, for example, you choose the gender of the protagonist or whatever, but you do need to presume that the player isn't a man, and that's what's even the mistakes even makes dramatically. And I think when you are dealing with something as evocative as emotionally charged as sexism or racism or any ism, you have to give the player a choice about their degree of participation in that system.
Yeah.
And you can argue that, obviously, and a lot of the sexist stuff in Sleeping Dogs happen as part of the main quest, so you can't avoid it. Like, and I appreciate that they're not making a choice-based game, but in that case, you have to be smarter about what you... Like, put it this way, I disagree with you in that I think that it earns its right to go full-on Hong Kong action cinema towards the end, because it's sort of transitioning from one type of fiction to another within bounds that we understand are fictive and aren't advocating a certain thing in real life. And, the violence is presented with a degree of, this is kind of terrible what you're doing to these people, even as it's gratuitous. Whereas the sexism is just presented as a thing that you do, and it's not enough, because you don't get, it doesn't earn the right to comment on that kind of thing, and it no way comments on it, pun not intended, sufficiently intelligently to justify it being so awkward for everybody. End rant.
I was trying to work out what the pun was.
Yeah, so was I.
No way.
Yeah. Well done.
Got it halfway through.
That's good. Would you still recommend that? Because you were quite positive about the game last podcast. Would you still recommend that people play it? With all that said, is there still enough fun to be had in it, or is it too far gone?
You can enjoy. The thing is, we're talking about the problem of it being, I guess, suggestible, and the problem of people not taking it at kind of with a nuanced value, and not being aware that this thing is reprehensible. I mean, you can enjoy, things that are the artists who might have different viewpoints to your own. You can enjoy Bach or something like that, even if you aren't necessarily or Wagner, sorry, if you aren't technically a vast anti-Semite. Like, you can kind of look into these things and appreciate that while still going
historical. I think, well, I did enjoy a lot of things about it. I liked its combat system. I liked some of the ideas about driving. I liked the world it's set in, and sort of big chunks of the story I found interesting, actually. I really appreciated its attention to detail in terms of making sure that all the mini games, and there are quite a lot for different things you do, are kind of really feel like part of the world. And
you like the karaoke as well.
Yeah, and I like the karaoke, and you have to interact with the world in a way that's kind of... That was, in a way, one of the ways I disarmed Wei Shen, asshole, was by, like... There's that mission where you have to assemble all the girls for this guy. You then sing karaoke for them, and I sort of, like, knocked it out of the park. I think girls just want to have fun, just because, like, to disarm. But then after the mission ended, it leaves you in the karaoke bar and everyone else is left. And I just sat there and sang all the rest of the karaoke songs, just to kind of, like, give his character an extra dimension where, like, yeah, he's this, maybe he's a prick who will totally go on board with this kind of rounding up girls to entertain someone thing. But then he just hangs around in karaoke by himself, singing
He's a sensitive soul,
Pat
really.
Benatar. Like, there's, like, I'm okay with, like, that, there's a...
Nothing wrong with that.
He's just a little bit odd. That's
He's complicated. He's got many sides.
But I mean, I would still. I think it really depends on how much that sort of thing is going to turn you off the game. It pissed me off to the point where when it started to really get to me, I was halfway through that game and I'd committed myself to finishing it because I wanted to finish a game that wasn't a game of Dota. I would completely respect anyone getting to that point in the game and just going fuck this, basically.
I think that's
Maybe that's a bit of a cop-out,
I've always
but-
found a problem with enjoying things that are written by reprehensible people or have reprehensible.
I don't think
things.
I don't think you can say this game was written by reprehensible people. Partly because you shouldn't
Well, that's true.
you can't presume anything.
But like
I think
the
that's really
concept
strong and probably the wrong thing. to say.
It is also, slander.
Well, okay, no, I mean reprehensible.
So not that.
I mean, Wei Shen is a reprehensible person, and he becomes the Wagner in this, and it's whether you want to become this kind of person, and if you can deal with the idea that you are becoming this or buying into this terrible thing, then that's fine because you can still appreciate the cultural medium underneath. But if you can't get past the fact, that top layer thing that the person you are or the person that you are buying into isn't something you ascribe to, then I think it's tough to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
It's a content advisory
with that.
thing.
Yeah,
Like, we should have a way of saying
sticker on the box
this is
saying
sexist.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think a lot of it was intentional either. I mean, so many of the systems come across as, this was half finished, or we didn't quite have time to flesh this out as much as we would. And the end result of that is, it's really bad at these things. But I don't think there is any Wagnerism on the part of the developers there.
No,
thing.
I think
that
is says Wei Shen. I think,
And I think and it feels like it's not malevolent. It's ignorant. It's a product of a bunch of guys writing a cool crime story, because it's got every other cool crime story cliche in it. In most every mafia movie or Hong Kong action movie cliche you can think of is probably in there somewhere. And them throwing all of these things in the pot without stopping to go, hang on, are we capable of pulling off this, triad gangsters trading women around thing with anywhere near the degree of subtlety and grace it requires in order to not be crass? And the answer is no. So it's not what Rich said in the slightest. Legally, it's not what Rich said in the slightest.
I didn't mean the people behind it. I mean,
That's exactly what you said.
The people that you play as, because games are a new kind of medium. They're not, you're not buying into the Johnny von Writingson who sends in the writing stuff. You're buying into the character you play as instead. And if you're playing as Wei Shen, then he becomes, the composer, I guess, of the game.
keep digging, Rich. Keep digging. Dig up.
I think I understand what I mean. That's what I mean.
Let's move on. All the same, just in case. Phil, what have you been playing recently?
I've been playing Zafehouse Diaries with a Z, which is
Also an indie game, by any chance?
Yes, very much so. But actually, talking about relationships and stuff, that's a very interesting one in that way because it's a turn-based, almost board game thing, in which it's centered around, clearly with the Z, a zombie survival scenario, your Zafehouse,
If you will.
Zombie
if you will.
safe house.
Yes.
A safe house.
That's a cute Toys R Us backwards Z at the beginning. Let's be safe.
So it randomly assigns you with 5 survivors, and all those survivors will, as you're going about trying to barricade up your safe house and scavenge new items
Every
for your
time.
scavenge new items and just generally survive. You've got to deal with the relationships and personalities of these randomly generated 5 characters that it gives you.
Okay.
So it's quite clear on their faults as well. I mean, it's a game that understands that the best zombie stories are basically about the survivors, not about the zombies, and that's what you want. And to an extent, you want there to be a tension there, and you want these people to be flawed and kind of broken in some ways. So each person will have like a profession and a background randomly picked, but they'll also have a prejudice. Most of the time. So the last game I played, the most common one you'll see is, character X says he's not racist, but has a problem with character Y. But no, there are some other ones as well, like just straight, this character hates the poor.
Fair enough.
So-
how do you interact with those characters then? Is it dialogue trees?
The other thing
or-
is, a lot of it is very autonomous, and they sort of do their thing kind of independently with you saying what actions you want them to perform. That's where the board game thing comes in, because a lot of you play it, you've got a map of the town, the house you're in, the sort of places that you need to search, and because the ultimate objective is to be rescued by a helicopter that's coming in soon. So you need to search houses to get a radio, and then you need to find out what the frequency for the rescue is. So they're the two things you're sort of looking for.
Okay.
The way you do that then is the 5 characters are represented as pieces on the map, just board game counters that each represents to one, and you'll drag them over to a different house and you'll assign them with an action. So I want you 2 guys to breach this house. And when you're selecting those people, you want to be very careful that the sort of relationship lines are on positive terms.
But surely if you put 2 people who hate each other together on a mission like that, they both learn lessons and
To an
grow
extent,
as human beings.
if it
and then
goes
at the end
well-
are better.
And then a
better
buddy
for it.
movie ensues.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it goes well, then yeah, that can happen, and it'll say, "Oh, these 2 are actually, these 2 feel more positive about the group as a result." If it goes badly, one of them will just punch the other one, or a fight will break out, or it'll just start to go wrong.
Tensions rise.
Yeah,
and-
you generally don't want to send them off on something critical together. I mean, I just had left 2 people alone in the house just to search it for items, and a punch up ensued, and somebody got injured, and that wasted valuable medical supplies because there's that sort of autonomy. Someone will take the painkillers automatically if they've been hurt without your intervention there, and that's ruining.
Who are you in the game? God?
You are the Company of Heroes 2 floating god man.
Private Zafehouse.
Zafehouse Beeblebrox.
Yes.
Oh, very good.
I roll.
Just saving that all
Yeah.
Wait for the lull, wait for the lull. So,
Pause
Do you-
for lol.
do people die? So, like, do you lose like one character and now you're down to 4, and you're,
Frequently,
like, the
and
team is whittling down to?
sometimes that's good. Like the guy who hated the poor in my most recent game. I mean, a lot of the characters it seems to pick from, and whether this is just a quirk of the random generation or whether they're trying to say something like there's any social point to it, but a lot of the characters are poor, uneducated. So if somebody hates the poor, they're kind of a bit of a dick in that environment, basically. They're flying that ointment.
Do they have any upsides, the people who hate the poor?
Which one's
Can you-
surely reaching for?
Can you trade them for objects?
There's a randomly generated profession as well, so they could be a policeman, in which
Right.
case they're really good at protecting people.
Okay.
Or they could be, I think he was a mechanic, so can make items better. One of the modes, 'cause there's 2 different scenarios you can pick, and one of them is fixing up a car. So you can escape. So sometimes they're good to have around. Other times they're just sort of causing tensions, and if they happen to die, the group suddenly becomes a lot more.
Go and investigate that house that's full of
on
zombies.
your own that sort of abandoned police station.
How do you work out when you, say if you send 2 people to go and breach a house, how do you work out if that's a success or not? Is it random generated or is it...
Well, that's the sort of diary element. So you've set up your orders each turn. You've got these people breaching a house. You've got this person making a meal. You've got this person just being prejudiced at people. And then you click the end turn button as a one. It'll sort of forward an hour, and then the diary will fill in, and it will just explain you found this, and this person was maybe injured while breaching the house.
While making dinner.
Not being racist.
And it'll do things like that. Like, so if you're breaching a house, you've got this incredibly tense, oh, they got in, there were 5 zombies, there was this battle, somebody was injured, and then it cuts back to the other house where you've actually barricaded it in your safe, and it'll just say, Tim ate a snack. And that's your log for the hour. And that's sort of how you understand everything that's happening to these people, because it tries to obscure as many of the actual systems as possible, just so that all you get coming out are the stories and enough information through those to try and decide what you do next.
Is that enough game to enjoy? Like, it seems like you'd just be kind of doing the obvious thing, sending everyone to the house, and then...
To an extent, and that's something I'll find out soon, because I've only played it for a few hours now. A couple of games, one of which ended in disaster.
How long is the session or a whole campaign?
Like the one that ended in disaster probably took me about 30 minutes.
Okay.
Just sort of, that was like the tutorial one. This one now, it's going a bit better. Again, I would played it over lunch, so probably about an hour for there. But there is the hard limit of, well, this rescue mission is coming in. So once you've cycled through so many turns, and then it just becomes a case of, well, how much do you want to interpret what you're being told, and how much do you want to search a house and build up supplies and build up your Zafehouse and barricade it
Funny
up.
every time.
It's good.
How do you get this game? How do I get it? Where do I get it?
You can get it on GOG.com.
How much?
At the moment, very cheap. Although by the time this is up, probably a bit more. Probably about $5, $6.
This sounds
good.
really cool. I
Yeah,
like
it's-
everything you've said about this game. This sounds like my kind of thing. I want to play this game. Yay! Let's
Yay.
let's end the podcast so I can go play it now.
Graham,
Yes.
what have you been playing?
I have been playing Democracy 3, which isn't out yet. So, yay, I'm special.
Game journalism out there, everybody.
Sympathetic people.
Do it for the democracy.
It was at Rezzed, but I wasn't. But there's there's an alpha version of it about basically for cool people like me. Yay!
So what do you do?
Tell us what you do in Democracy.
Democracy is a game by Cliff Harris, and you play as the leader of a country. You can choose which leader, but by default in the alpha it's Britain, and you choose what political party you are, and then you set about leading your country by setting policies, by dealing with special events that happen like terrorist attacks and so forth, and how you cope with that, and by trying to balance the budget and trying to make enough people like you that you get re-elected at the next election. Now, I played quite a lot of Democracy 1 and Democracy 2 when they came out years and years ago, and they're very complex simulations basically, and they're more simulation than game in a lot of ways, and the game part of it is just this huge menu screen covered with icons, kind of split up into segments of economy and security and stuff like that, and then you go into those sections and work out, okay, this alcohol law is linked to the increase in crime, but the lowering of health problems, and so that's taking the stress off the NHS, and that's da-da-da-da-da, and so you kind of work out how all these systems are interlinked, and then change how much you want to enforce certain policies, how much money you want to spend on certain policies, institute new policies to say, hey, I'm going to have better maternity leave for people when they're having babies now, and no, this means that this demographic group now likes me better, and that means
Babies.
that I'll get yeah, babies are big fans of that, and then that means those babies will vote for me in the next election.
Babies can't vote.
And then I'll be re-elected. In previous democracy games, pretty much every time I played it, I got inevitably blown up because terrorists would storm parliament,
Baby
buildings,
terrorists.
kill a bunch of politicians, myself included, and that happened way too often. Like, even if you had, because there were certain tricks you could do to game the system a little bit and end up with a
Control the media.
well, you could do certain things like that. You could certainly turn your country into a totalitarian state and just have
Does the name of the
security
game
cameras
change when
over.
that happens?
No.
Autocracy.
Democracy question mark, and then democracy-ish, and then no, seriously, it's democracy.
But you could be in a position of having an 85% approval rating, winning the election in a landslide, but some minority group that you had completely alienated would then blow you up. Democracy 3 I've only played for about half an hour so far, and it seems
Been blown up
smarter
yet?
in the simulation side. And I played a term, and I was very, very popular by realistic standards. I think I was over 60% approval rating, and then I lost the election anyway because I had really bad voter turnout as compared to my opponent, which was interesting.
So, from that brief time, does it feel as though you could apply your own political values to the system? Or is it more about responding to threats?
It's
You
Graham's
can- you
baby
can-
first policy.
You can totally apply your own political
That's
values
cool.
to it. So at the start, when you choose you choose what political party you want to start as, and there's a choice of 25, and then you can choose from that same list who your main opponent is. And you can, eventually you'll be able to change which country and that kind of thing. But then once you're actually in, you can say, hey, I'm gonna run the country as the Green Party would run the country, go look up their manifesto, and then enact all their policies.
That's awesome.
And the simulation is accurate enough that Cliff Harris, the guy who made it, and this is... we've got a feature in the next issue written by Philippa War, who went to Raised and interviewed Cliff, and so I'm stealing information from her a little bit, and undercutting the magazine What We Sell by
fine.
weeks, which is
Got
bad.
out with a blaze.
Yeah, but he was approached by different governments and stuff like that who wanted to use the game to simulate things. I think the US government
Holy
approached
crap.
him at one point because they wanted to use it to model policies and demographics in Afghanistan to see how different groups would react.
That's awesome.
I don't know if he pursued that or anything,
I just love
because
that-
he hasn't made a democracy game in a while because he was making gratuitous space battles
Yeah.
instead.
Yeah.
I just love the idea of the email. It's like, dear Cliff, we've heard about this thing called democracy. We'd love to try it. Yours, the British government.
I love that it's called Democracy 3 now as well. I love that it's the sequel to Democracy.
So if you
Democracy Origins.
if you play as Conservative Party or something, and
Yeah.
you suddenly start bringing in Green Party laws and policies, does your own party kick off?
Do you turn away your voter base?
I don't think so, no. I don't think it's got that kind of modelling of your own party. And the way it models demographics is that everyone is totally rational. And so if you do a thing which is good for poor people, then the poor people recognise it and are now happier,
yeah.
as opposed to there being stuff with marketing or anything like that. So I don't think it models...
Spin.
if
or
you were-
perception of you or what they expect of a
Yeah.
Conservative Party.
'Cause
But
if you-
it might do, and I might be wrong about that.
If you were a Conservative Party and you suddenly started in bringing in Green Party laws, the Green Party voters wouldn't vote for you because you're Conservative.
Actually, that's the thing. You have... I'm wrong. I'm just forgetting things. You've got a cabinet. You've got a cabinet which is made up of like 8 advisors, and their support is based on their trust in you. And so they have preferences, and if you don't enact those preferences, then their trust in you goes down, and that means that your political capital goes down, and your political capital is what you've got each turn that you need in order to enact policies. So if your cabinet loses faith in you, then you'll have less political capital, then you'll be less able to enact your
So
policies.
you can't do the
and-
policies that you want to.
yeah, and then you can do things like you can fire members of your cabinet or reshuffle your cabinet, but that then costs a lot of political capital as well. And so there's risks involved in doing that.
So you generally meant to, if you pick a party that is left or right or centre, you're supposed to play
you
left or right
you
or
would
centre.
be better off, I think, following that line. But then there's a huge choice of political parties to choose from. There's far more political parties to choose from than I realised existed.
Is it possible to play as an opposition party and try and unseat?
No,
Okay, that's a shame.
you're always in power.
I kind of wanted to play that same game, but as Malcolm Tucker, like from the other side of the aisle. That'd be really fun.
It's just, I mean, you can, if you take over as Britain, you obviously have serious economic problems. Like,
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, you've got,
Sounds accurate.
you've got, you're in a recession, the global economy's tanking, and that's having an inverse impact on you, and your GDP is really low, and you've got a deficit and stuff like that. And so, it's realistic enough that you can simulate those scenarios, and then you're trying to do other things and run the country by your own ideals with then terrible limitations. Almost like it's a really difficult job to do in the real world.
It's easy. We can all do it.
So yeah, that's what I've been playing. It's pretty good.
Sounds awesome.
I'm looking forward to the final version being out, which I think is out quite soon.
And also the feature in the next issue.
Yes, on sale August 1st.
There you go.
Yay, Rich.
Gosh.
Rich, what have you been playing?
I have been playing Rogue Legacy, which is another indie game,
Yay, indie games.
which I don't normally do. But
Sounds good.
it is. So you guys went batshit for
Spelunky.
which I never really got into. I mean, I can understand its appeals, but I never really got into it in the same way that Graham, you did, and I assume the other guys a bit what Tom did, in a way that I've never seen Tom go mad for anything like that before.
Shame he's dead now.
Yeah. Spelunky killed him.
It inspired him to die.
Yeah.
Well, you die a lot in that game.
He found the Temple of Gold in real life. Is what happens.
He founded the Temple of God. And roguelikes is similar to that in the way that it's a procedure-generated castle that has extra bits as well. But every time you start a new life, you go into the castle and it says building, and then it builds the castle, and it's loads of different rooms and enemies that you kill with one attack, and there's lots of different items and lots of different secret rooms you can find, a carnival place that you can play mini games, that kind of thing. But its central conceit is the fact that when you die, your character dies and you restart the game as one of your character's children, one of 3 children, and they all have certain traits, and the traits can include things like ADHD, which means you just move faster, which is just a bonus. And there's OCD as well, which means that when if we destroy furniture and other bits like chandeliers and things like that, they drop mana potions for you to pick up, which again is just a bonus. Like having like OCD in that is a good thing because you want to destroy everything and clean the entire place. There's also things like vertigo, which just flips the screen completely, so you are upside down running, which is really, really complicated to do. You're not going to live very long as a
the text is flipped upside down, so just the whole screen.
Yeah, and there's this dyslexia, which means that the text is just, as you know, I guess as you essentially see if you're dyslexic, where the words are all jumbled up, and dementia, where you just can't understand some words, and there's bald as well, which you can't see on your character because your character wears a helmet, but instead of saying building when it builds a level, it says balding. So I assume that the only jibe is the fact that that you feel a bit paranoid that everyone thinks you're bald, and you are, and the game jibes it to you. But some of these things are really good, some of these things are really bad, and some of them are just nothing. Like you can be gay as well, and you play male or female characters depending on which children you have. It seems to be an entirely random selection. And the gay one is just you like men if you're a man, you like women if you're a woman. And
that's what being gay means.
Yeah, but it says that in the thing, and then there's a really
forum
interesting
post going
Game
around,
Facts forum post where the guy's been like, I've seen that my character's gay. What does it mean? What does it mean in terms of the game? Like, is it negative buff? Is it positive? And he says, I think it just means they're just people. So it's kind of this profound moment on the internet of this guy realising that, they're just people. But it's that is kind of an interesting factor. But it's also, like, for me, that's interesting. And I quite like the idea of Spelunky before. But the thing that keeps me playing is the progression as well. So when you finish the castle, you come out with gold. And then you get to spend that gold before the next life, and you can come out with 100 gold, which isn't really very much, or you come out with a couple of thousand, and then you can buy loot and upgrade your castle, which gives you better base stats, and also gives you the ability to unlock new classes, and there's different classes as well. So your first guy that you play as, which is like, I think it's back in like this AD 700, you kind of, is the game starts at, with the very first of your line, trying to get back into this castle that's been taken over by a demon, by this guy who killed your dad. Sharon is the demon.
Sharon.
As in Sharon,
as in Sharon.
That's how you say it, Sharon. Sharon the demon. And you eventually kind of go through. But I'm now in, I think, like the year 3800. I've gone through so many different parts of, like, so many family trees. But I started off in like really basic armor and a basic sword. I've now got a sword that sucks the life out of enemies and gives me more health back every time I do it, and an amazing helm that means I can double jump and like fly in midair and these kind of things. And you eventually upgrade your character, and you start. There's a castle, there's a dungeon, there's a forest, and there's a bit above the castle called the Mire. And the Mire and the dungeon are both terrifying. I'm just starting now to get into the forest a bit more, and they're always like, the castle is procedure generated, but they're always on the forest always on the right, the Mire's always on top, and the dungeon's always at the bottom. It's now getting to the point where I can start to push into those things, and it feels like a genuine sense of progression in a way that Spelunky can have if you put it there yourself. Like Tom would always, he'd say, I'm going to get to the City of Gold. That was his aim all the way through it. But that's kind of self, like, goal setting. Whereas this is genuinely.
Spelunky does change. I love Spelunky, but Spelunky does change the world design quite dramatically. So you've got like World 1, Level 1, and then once you get to Level 4 and go through the exit, you get to World 2.
Yeah,
and
same
the
with
first time, like, because it's so difficult, you can play it for 6 hours, and so the first time you get to World 2. It's all different, and then that process of then trying to get to World 3, trying to get to World 4, trying to beat the boss, and then trying to do it in the ridiculous way to get the mysterious City of Gold. And you've got a kind of slight progression system in that you're paying the Tunnel Man to give you shortcuts to those worlds as well. But that's the only kind of persistent thing.
I think, the persistence is the thing that's getting me. And it's, again, the reason I love it feels like Dark Souls in a way, because you're learning an area and you're learning how to do things over and over again. You learn how to beat special enemies in certain ways, but they all act slightly differently, and the whole area is slightly different each time. But you feel not just you're not just getting better within yourself, you're getting notably, visibly, viscerally better at stuff as well, which is really kind of nice little payoff. And it's in a fairly small indie game. I think it costs like £12, which is kind of high, but for what you get, I've played it much more than anything else recently, and it's got me hooked now to the point when I'm annoyed because it doesn't have cloud saving, because when I go home I want to play it as well. So I've got 2 games on the go when I'm actually upgrading my character in kind of different ways as well, because I've learned stuff from home and here.
You mentioned before when you were playing it that the combat was a little floaty.
Yeah, so you have different classes and you unlock different classes. So you start off as the basic ones are kind of mage, paladin. Well, you start with knight or like knave, I think is the base one. But the knave becomes like a shinobi and then something else, and the shinobi hit really hard but can't crit and these kind of things. The mage becomes an archmage that can switch his spells around, and the paladin lets you block stuff. And there's also like a barbarian that can shout things, and when he shouts, knocks everyone back on the screen, and he says "Fusto Ra," so which is quite cute. But having these different kind of characters each time you play, when your parents died and you play as one of the 3, that means that your play style changes a lot, but the combat remains. Like, you have this kind of, your sprites can be different size. You can have dwarfism or you can have gigantism, and that means that you are obviously taller or smaller than you were before. But when you jump at an enemy, especially when you're a giant, it's really hard to tell when you're actually touching them. The enemy animations sometimes are a bit weird. So you'll hit one of the flying balls that flies around with your sword and you're knocked back most of the time. Sometimes they just won't. Sometimes they won't get knocked back. Granted, sometimes it says you have weak limbs and you can't knock an enemy back. It's one of your traits. But other times I've had, he's really strong. He's just as powerful as everything else, and he still can't knock him back just because the enemies are a little bit off. And you kind of, sometimes you do feel there's not enough precision about the controls to feel like you're always in complete control. And I've screamed at it a few times, which is not at me screaming at it, screaming at the game, which is kind of the line between irritation and frustration and the good side of it and the bad side of it. Like, there's these portraits that follow you around. You hit them off the wall and they follow you around, chase you down the aisle in the castle, and you can turn around and hit them. But the amount of times when you turn around and hit them, and I haven't been able to turn because the joypad I'm using isn't quite responsive enough, and the game doesn't quite do it fast enough. It's a little bit frustrating, but I'm still playing it.
It's by the developers of a free indie game called Don't Shit Your Pants, which came out a few years ago and created quite the star.
The one thing I really liked about Rogue Legacy was you walk through the castle and all these different random rooms appear. Sometimes you'll find a jukebox and you can just change the music, and then sometimes you'll find a carnival and the clown lets you use your special secondary weapon to try and destroy a whole load of targets, and if you do, you get some items. If you don't, you get some gold. And then sometimes you find a picture on the wall, and the picture on the wall is of Celador Games who make it, one of their other games, and it tells you a story about it. So Don't Shit Your Pants is one of them, and it says, we made this game and it caused quite a stir. We were thinking about not calling it Don't Shit Your Pants because it had a swear word in the title, but then I think it says we found our balls and then did it anyway. And then but the first time I found one of these rooms, I was dyslexic. So I was trying to piece together this story. It was like, we did gamma, and I was trying to work out what it actually was, and I eventually did kind of work out what they were trying to say. There's this nice little story about the first indie game they made. But yeah, it tells you the story of the castle through diary entries you find, and also the actual development studio. It's nice that I think they made 3 games, or of the ones I found, they made like 2 or 3 games. Were about to close down, and then they made one thing in like a day. I can't remember what it was called. And then that did really well, and that let them keep making games, and the reason that they made Rogue Legacy, put these things in it. There's a real kind of sense of heart and characters in it, in a way that I don't. I know there is in Spelunky, but it never quite got me in the same way. So
Spelunky's awesome. You should play Spelunky more.
I didn't need to when you guys were all playing it. You go,
Yep, that's what we sound like.
Yeah.
All the time. Shall we do questions from Twitter?
We should.
Let's do it.
Yeah, questions from Twitter.
For one last time.
Yes, the final questioning. Joe from Twitter asks,
Actually, Joe is not from Twitter, just from Reddit.
Joe from Reddit asks, oh God. Have you ever played the interplay game Sacrifice, and if so, do you think this third-person strategy genre hasn't been properly explored? I have such fond memories of that game. ...
That was when you were the baby, wasn't it? And you jumped into people's.
That's Messiah.
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 It's getting mixed up.
Sacrifice is fantasy, godish, and stuff. I haven't played it. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I haven't played it.
No.
Why don't we go to Reddit and find this question if we haven't played it?
Oh no, I got sent it in a message and I put it in.
His question is: have you ever played the interplay game Sacrifice? No. And if so, well, that's irrelevant. Sorry.
What's
the third person strategy
yeah.
thing is.
Well, there's Orcs Must Die.
Orcs Must Die, yeah.
And I guess Smite is kind of a third person, but it's not
It's a third person MOBA.
MOBA. But wait, what is
MOBA
MOBA
Delta.
if it's not an action
Delta MOBA.
RTS?
What about Giant Citizen Kabuto? That had little
that was a brilliant
strategy
game.
moments in it. Where you play
Did have
as
strategy.
Marines going around.
Or Brutal Legend.
Oh, yeah.
That's strategy.
Weren't some of these games by the same people? Sacrifice, Messiah, and Giant Citizen Kabuto, wouldn't they?
Shiny?
One of them is by two. I think two of those three are by Shiny.
Man.
But I don't know. So I really have no value
Giant
to
Citizen
contribute.
Kabuto was brilliant.
That's cool.
I
Yeah.
remember playing it when I got my
So
first.
weird.
I got GeForce 3.
Yeah, that was the game that came with
so,
GeForce
yeah.
3, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh, GeForce. How we miss you.
That's still around.
I know.
Great means they're in the office now. We have to go back.
Ian Shane asks, how about a PCG UK Dota 2 guild? And Skoo asks, I want to know if Chris is going to TI3 to work, to self-indulge, or both. Also, is there a PCG Dota 2 guild? What's TI3, Chris?
The International 3.
The International. Well, both,
So
surely then.
I am going to the International. Hooray! I don't know if I mentioned that on the podcast before. I'm going. Hooray!
you.
Pardon?
Hooray for you, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was hurraying for me. Who else would I be hurraying for?
I don't know.
I'm always hurraying for me.
Leading us all in the hooray charge.
I think everyone should be hurraying for me.
Oh, I'm not hooray.
Why?
I wanna go.
Okay. Anyway, this hostility notwithstanding, I am going to tier 3. I'm going for PC Gamer, so for work, but I will also have fun, hopefully, because I like Dota a lot, and I'm looking forward to meeting people and hopefully getting a pretty cool feature out of that. Guild-wise, something I've been thinking about. There hasn't been a huge amount of interest on our forums or anything in PC Gamer Dota specifically. I play a lot with Rock Paper Shotgun's community. They've got a lot of Dota people, and I'm fine with that. And I think everyone should maybe put down the pitchforks you've just raised.
We haven't raised any pitchforks.
No,
we
Rich-
like our friends at Rock,
we
Paper,
do.
Shotgun.
We have a great time playing
.com.
with them as well.
It's weird. No, well, probably shouldn't. We like our friends at rockpapershotgun.com.
Okay, this
I'm
is the-
curious about that now.
Well, anyway, just to
I was just going to say it's weird that they have a bigger Dota 2 community than we do, because the folks that run that site don't really play the game. They're not huge fans, as opposed to you, Chris, and you, Rich.
Well, there's a bunch of answers to that, none of which you'll like. So, anyway, but there's a decent amount of people playing who are kind of, and everyone kind of trades back and forth. I created a guild, which is at the moment for people that I like sort of playing with regularly.
The people that I like.
Oh, both really. Called Hot Dukes, which we can try and make more of a thing, try and use it to get new people into Dota as well, and make sure they've got a friendly environment to play in. I'd be happy to set up a PC Gamer Guild if there was interest in it. So really what I'm working around towards is, if there is interest in this, let me know either on Twitter or on the forums, and if we can get enough people to warrant having one, then we should do that. If there isn't enough interest to warrant having a PC Gamer specific one, because it's like 4 of us or whatever, then anyone who listens to this podcast is more than welcome to be a member of Hot Dukes.
With a D as well.
Hot
isn't it?
Dukes, yeah, it's a corruption of there's a technique in Dota called duking, which is where you run around trees to evade enemies, based on basketball, I think. And our friend Matt Lees of videogamer.com, of the abridged D3 videos, he misinterpreted this phrase for hundreds of hours as duke, as in a kind of lord or landowner, and once congratulated a member of the enemy team on his hot dukes, and to which everyone was delighted, and everyone was absolutely thrilled, and it became a very regal game of Dota from then onwards, and that's why we're calling it Hot Dukes.
I'm now imagining a game of basketball where there's a giant tree in the middle of the...
I'm imagining a game basketball between like 17th century dukes.
Yeah, so
Oh, very good.
that's just how they sound. But yeah, so we're going to do that, and I'm hoping to have a newbie team to help train people.
Mini Dukes.
Called the Little Dukes.
Oh.
And maybe I'm thinking about it, actually putting a UK Dota team together, which would be called Big Dukes. And that's the plan so far. But
Big dukes, little dukes, hot dukes.
everyone is a hot duke under this
Umbrella
scheme.
term.
Under this, yeah, everyone is a hot duke. You're a hot duke, Graham. You could be a hot duke if you wanted.
I am a hot duke.
Okay, but do you want to be like in like Dota Guild?
No, not really. But I bet we could get interest. There's certainly enough interest on PCGamer.com when we write about Dota. I'm sure we could stir up people and say, hey.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to get that set up. So yes, I suppose.
Yeah,
but do let us know on the forums or
Having played a lot of Dota but not having investigated the guild very much, or guild system very much in it, what do you gain from being in a guild?
It's essentially a friends list. The main benefit is you can open a party. So you start a party system, you wait till you got 5 people and queue for a match to anyone from your guild. So rather than having to invite people, you start an open party.
So just you
can click on the guild interface and see that there's this many open parties, and you can name the party. So you can say that we're going to do an all-random match or whatever. If we need, and people could just hop in.
Okay, cool.
So with a big guild, it means that it reduce, and it's a safer form of playing solo, basically. But also a convenient way of keeping friends kind of linked together.
Cool. Lewis Witzel asks, do you still play PlanetSide 2? I just got back into it and it feels like all the players are gone. ...
I play when there's an event.
Yeah, I play for events. I feel like the narrative of an event makes it so much more exciting for me when I play it. So like a big get-together or a big us versus RPS bash is always fucking amazing fun.
I think we should do more of them, really.
Yeah,
like,
Speaking of, Jim of RPS, who's there, PlanetSide dude is in the office tomorrow.
Oh, cool.
So
arrange this.
So we'll throw a gauntlet at him then.
Sweet.
I think, I love the idea of it, but it is a bit of trouble trying to get. I mean, I haven't actually seen the status of the outfit at the moment, but I mean, last time I checked, there's still a fair few people that are.
We've got a very active outfit. We've got a new website as well, which is pcg-ps2.engine.com.
There we go.
Be part of the new guild hub
Engine
when that gets
being
started up. ENGIANJN. I put it in the show notes. But yeah, no, we've got a very active PlanetSide.
Yeah, it's much
crew,
more a case
so
of,
if you want people,
knowing where to look, I guess, for them and finding out where they are. But yeah, there's like Jakara and people like that are great at organising stuff. So
yeah.
Alex Evans asks, do you think Star Citizen will bring back the flight sim? And PC Gaming Wiki asks, why did the space game industry fade out so quickly back in around 2000? Star Citizen won't bring back the flight sim because it's a space game. And the flight sim never went away.
Spirit of the question, letter of the question. Jesus.
I really hope Star Citizen does, because the videos of all the kind of
looks amazing.
Yeah.
Like it didn't have that
visually.
much. Yeah, it didn't have that much kind of game to it. But for some reason, the back of my neck, there's that
the nerd
space
part of the brain
consciousness
that it's kind of lights up when you see the space.
Tickled part of it for me, and also with Tom, you'll talk about the playing EVR, Open Rift, like combining that with Star Citizen.
Yeah.
Just be.
We said last
time
because space games are such an obvious fit for the Oculus Rift. We said on the last episode that they could by themselves spur a kind of return to space sims just because it makes so much sense.
Well, you can see
definitely.
Format. In answer to the second question, I mean, I guess you could see where they died because people couldn't really do terrain particularly easily. It was more complicated to do that than have a vast open 3D space. And when it suddenly got a lot more technically viable to create a third-person action adventure, everybody started making them because you could suddenly now have the power to actually make these worlds rather than just have, here is a giant starfield to just go where you want in, and we need to animate the ships instead.
It is a thing of, I don't know, I mean, it's more satisfying, I think, to shoot a person than it is to shoot a spaceship. And a lot of the games that had spaceships in, they were bullet sponges to a big degree. You know, you were shooting them quite unsatisfyingly with lasers, or you were flying at them from far, far away, rocketing past them, and then slowly banking round until you got them back in your sights again. It wasn't always the most satisfying. There is a difference between the fantasy of being a starfighter or being a space traveler or trader in your head and the actual reality of that. And the reality of that is often that you're floating through vast nothingness.
It's kind of
trading
kind of Spacey's deal,
space
really, isn't it?
gerbils or whatever it is, you know, flying 3 hours between space stations. And I do think it will, you know, there's obviously still an appetite, and I think it's foolish that the mainstream games publishers abandoned it. And I think it will. It is making a comeback. There's like so many of them have been funded through.
We talked about it last time, but the idea of new control models as well, being able to not just have like so many games of X-Wing Online would just descend into just a circle, just me going around in a circle, the other person around in a circle. Just after a certain period of time, once you played that across 8 different games, you kind of know what that is, and you don't really need another set of games. Like, 3 FPS is going to have different kind of combat styles and systems, whereas 3 space games will probably all be. Space dogfighters would be fairly similar in terms of you are chasing a person through an empty space, and you have to try and stay on their tail and shoot them with your lasers or shoot them with a missile. And you kind of see people get tired of that fast, and also I assume they probably weren't selling as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, what was the one that famously flopped? Is it Free Space 2 or was it Freelancer? I get them mixed up.
Neither of them flopped.
Star Lancer?
I don't remember. Chris McFarlane asks, moving on swiftly.
Space Flopper?
Yeah, Space Flopper. Space Flopper sold almost no copies. Chris McFarlane asks, do you think the Steam Games summer sale will start today, and when do you think it will finish?
I don't think it'll start today or tomorrow when this goes up.
No.
Really?
And it will
Do we know
never
anything?
finish.
We don't know anything about when it will start or finish. But
Vague hints. TF2 was updated to include what are probably going to be the summer sale crates that they'll have, but that just means they're now in the game, ready for deployment.
Yeah, I mean,
whenever.
the fact that there'll be a summer sale doesn't seem to be
Yeah,
much of a
that's it.
spoiler. Like,
no,
There will be one. It will happen in summer.
it's an exciting time.
it is.
People should go buy Rogue Legacy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I am actually holding out.
Well, they
Yeah.
should probably wait until the sale to do that.
Yeah.
Xander Storm, cool name, asks, Intel, AMD or Nvidia, which do you prefer in terms of graphics?
The cheapest one.
Who has the best graphics?
Well, I actually put together a spec for it. This is probably going to be the first and maybe even last genuine hardware answer we've ever successfully done on this podcast
sure that's-
in 93 episodes. But I actually put together a PC spec for a friend today at lunchtime because she's buying a PC from scratch, and I looked it up. And in terms of cost effectiveness to kind of how long it'll last you, Nvidia seem to be pulling out ahead. And I appreciate I'll get death threats from Radiant Hardcore now, more people than I normally do. But apparently, I think the GTX series of GeForce cards, like the 670s, 760s,
Got a 670, and it's great.
Relative to cost, seem to be pretty high at most benchmarks I looked at.
Having
Going through-
I mean, I've got a
edited,
Radeon at home, but-
a load of tech posts from our hardware expert recently. I personally know very little about it, but he seems to be of the opinion that Nvidia are way ahead at the moment. So
Involves
they've
most
just released the GTX 700 series, and the latest one, the 760, is around £200 and apparently just outperforms.
That's the one I put in the build
Radeon.
today. Yeah.
And it's
That's
super hard, but apparently AMD aren't because normally they try and compete with ranges, but AMD haven't put out their next range yet.
And they wait for the new console.
And I think they're exactly so. They're all their tech's in the new consoles. So there are interesting questions about compatibility between console games and engines that are for AMD architecture and how that they'll perform next year when we start getting ports and that sort
Yeah.
of thing. But right now, Nvidia seem to be quite far ahead, and
I see-
Intel aren't. Just
It was kind of like the back and forth between. I mean, last time I checked when I was looking into upgrading was when AMD 7870s were like the sweet spot, £180.
Yeah, okay.
A really good thing. But then overtaken. I'm assuming back and forth. But I think if you want to upgrade, you bite the bullet at some point and take the. Like you, my experience has come from editing a hardware man's stuff and reading through that and going, okay, that's the best thing
so
now.
that's it.
So
There you go.
Hardware, eh?
Yeah,
who'd have it?
microchips. Shit.
Yeah. Guy Harrison asks, if you had one, what was your secret / obsessive, don't tell your non-gamer friends game title of your youth? Probably Pokemon
I was going to say
Red.
Pokemon.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
red was the best.
Yeah, much better than
Yeah.
Pokemon Blue.
Blue is the best.
Fuck blue.
Yeah, down with Blue.
No, up with Blue.
Up
Down
with
with you.
Charmander.
I think, Pokemon probably, but PC-wise, probably Dark Age of Camelot. We spoke about it on the previous episode, but I would never have explained to my friends when I was a teenager that I spent the certain amount of hours every day pretending to be a knight.
I remember a friend he used to play Asheron's Call, and I'd never really had
I liked
conceptualised an MMO before, and he tried to explain what he was doing to me. I just couldn't get my head around the idea of what it was.
Yeah, I think that was the mix. It was like people don't get what kind of game it is. They think it's just a regular kind of RPG or something, so they don't get why I describe myself as role playing in it. That it's this kind of link to this community, and I'm telling stories and writing fan fiction and all the rest of it. So
I think all the
So,
LAN
yeah.
parties that we had might have been a thing that we wouldn't have told anyone. So we'd go, we're just going to go and get drunk at someone's house for the weekend. We just wouldn't tell them we were bringing our PCs.
Play
as
for
well,
Life Force, yeah. No, yeah, I think it's the mixture of hard to explain, and then when you get through down to it, basically LARPing is a kind of... Not that there's anything wrong with LARPing, by any means. But,
We were, me and my now wife, we did a big long walk last year, and then for training
God,
for
this
that,
is amazing.
we were walking through the countryside outside Bath, and we were walking through a bit of woodland, and then we came across a whole load of people with big foam swords, and all these people were doing things and having fun and laughing, and we saw them, and they just stopped, and they stared at us. Like, what are you doing here? And
Mom,
then
Mom, the outsiders have found us.
But they were all like, 25 to 40, 50, 60 years old, and they were kind of sheepishly grinning, but in kind of a slightly creepy way as well. And they all had swords. They weren't real swords, but they all had swords, and they were looking at us, and we were like, Kat just looked at me and went, what is this? And I was kind of going, LARPing. And she was like, what's LARPing?
This isn't the time.
So while we were creeping through,
Just run.
this group of
Back
people,
away slowly. Don't take away eye contact.
but we altered our route because of that. Partly because I think we were both a bit freaked out at the fact that we came across these. They all had little like pointy ears on as well. I'm not actually joking about this. And then we walked a different way just because it was obvious that we were making them uncomfortable by catching them in the act. I wanted to kind of go and say to them, like, I don't mind. I understand. I don't understand your thing, but I understand my own thing.
Do
It's
not
okay.
be afraid.
I am from the future.
It's just scurry away into the wilderness. But it was quite a surreal experience to see that in real life and realise that actually these people have been almost driven underground for their sentiments. Because we were 20 miles away from Bath at this point, and they were in the middle of the woods, and they were having a lovely time until we turned up.
I've had some amazing LARPing stories in my life, but I was going to say though, as a counterpoint to that, when you eventually did that walk, didn't you survive that? Well, how far did you walk?
Is that we walked 100 kilometres in 30 hours.
So, didn't you survive that by fantasizing about Planetside?
Oh yeah.
So, like, there's like everyone exists on a gradient. Is what I'm saying.
No, I wanted to hug each one of the LARPers and just be like, I understand. I'm almost like
Let
you.
me stay.
Yeah, just curl up and put on the ears.
You should have just, picked up something from the ground and started throwing it at them, shouting firebolt, firebolt. Seeing what would have happened.
They were much more organised than that though. They were wearing like chainmail and stuff.
It would have been just funny to watch them slice you down.
Funny for you.
Wango asks, what do you think is the best price point for good quality Gruyere?
This might be because I tweeted a picture earlier today of which I found last night or 2 nights ago. Yeah, Co-op selling Gruyere cheese for £17.50 for like a small block that was reduced like 25% off for £14. And I saw it just like, that's not a good deal at all. Like it was next to some cheese that was £3.99 and some cheese that was like £2.99 and then £17. It wasn't even a big block. Normal size, hand-sized block of Gruyere for £17.50.
I'd be willing to spend upwards of £4 for a really nice cheese.
It'd have to be like either really nice artisan cheese.
Oh yeah,
Or
artisan
a hell of
man.
a hell of a lot of cheese for that price.
Oh, we've been living in Bath for too long.
What have we become?
Also, it's surprising that that's in the Co-op rather than one of the many specialist cheese shops in town.
I think it must have been a misprint at some point. Nobody pays £17.50 for a
Should have
block
gone
of
up
cheese.
and started shouting at them.
But then I don't know. Maybe they would. Maybe my worldview would have been more rocked if that was actually what they expected people to pay for. Also, somebody would have bought it at some point if that was the price.
Yeah.
It's hard to price cheese though. It's a bit of a grey area.
Oh, my God!
I can't
Shut
believe
it down.
it.
Shut it all down.
Is he saving these for 93 episodes?
You haven't spoken in like half an
No,
hour.
I haven't. Brain's been ticking. Cheese buns.
Thomas Busby asks, could you guys describe what is on each of your desks at work, like favourite pickle jar or teddy bear, etc.? I've got a few different things on my desk. I've got a couple of plastic guns. I've got a little
Most of mine.
Plants vs. Zombie where the leg's falling off. I've got one of the kind of slightly racist looking Asian themed zombies from Plants vs. Zombies. I've got one of those kind of Space Marine shaped things that you paint, and it's painted to look like
Dudes or something like that?
yeah, something with a Z in it where it shouldn't
It's
be.
not nudes.
Zafehouse.
It's something like that.
Yeah, I've got a Zafehouse painted like death Claw, or whatever the stupid fiery dragon is from World of Warcraft.
Deathwing.
Deathwing, that's the one. That angry dragon. I've got lots of toys on my desk. I like all my toys.
I've got a little. I just changed desks to sit where Tom, may rest in peace, Francis used to be, and I'm sorry, I didn't really have any toys beforehand because I'm really anti-clutter in quite an OCD way. That's why I pick up all the mana potions. But I inherited a bunch of his stuff, which he'll get back at some point, maybe, including a little Lego dog, which I play with, a Spelunky Venus flytrap monster,
Man-eating plant
thing. And best of all, the like a die-cast resin model of the Alliance Normandy from Mass Effect.
That home, it's lovely.
Yeah, which is the one thing I really like and may attempt to keep. And there was a moment the other day when it sits on. I've got two PCs next to each other, like a little Dell and a big gaming tower, and it sits on top of the little Dell, just next to the monitor, so I can kind of see it. But it does come off its base, so you can just hold the little spaceship. And I was sat there writing an article, and just you have to just sit and think or concentrate. And I was just turning the Normandy around in my hands, just something to fiddle with, just as you do. And I'd started to swoop it about, and I haven't I mean I haven't. I'm not a big I don't collect anything like that, and I'd probably hope that I haven't played with a toy in 17 years, maybe no less than that, 15 years. And but I was so close to going meow. I could feel the entire instinct, the I'm 11 years old play instinct, bubble up all the way up through my body towards my hand, and my hand wanted to do a cool little bank with the Normandy and swoop it around in front of me,
and I just
grabbed the base with my other hand and just put it back and put it down and put both my hands down on the desk. I was adulthood, no.
It's okay, Chris. You can play with the toys and still be an adult.
No.
I must get back to my adult life of playing computer games.
This is the thing. I've got to have balance, man. I've got to hold this thing. I've got to have a proper hobby.
Not swooping toys around in the air.
Like the Hulk trying to stop himself from getting angry.
Yeah. My desperate. And maybe all links back to what I was saying last week about hiding my games from the fact that I played games from people for years and years and years. I've still got that little part of me that just does not want to get drawn into. So I'm repelled by board games that have toy style pieces.
Stands.
Chess is classy because it's this is a knight.
It's all toys.
But it's not like a knight. You know what I mean? It's like a horse model, dude, right? It's art, man. It's not like a little This
is a lot of justification coming out, right?
Yeah. Oh, man. Maybe I am.
I think you've opened a box here.
Yeah. But there's no toys in that box.
Just cobwebs.
Anyone else have anything fun?
My desk has it's home to
all of the
about 45 empty Diet Coke bottles.
Yeah, I realise I have a problem. There's one actually on
this
this
Diet
table
Coke bottle on
now.
this desk.
Yeah.
I've tried to cut back recently, but also all my guns that Graham keeps stealing and saying, "Oh, they're my guns," even though one of the blue guns that you were playing with the other day and you said was your gun was the gun you bought me for my birthday last year.
This is why I attempt to maintain that I'm an adult. This shit.
We have a lot of toy guns.
Toy guns help me think. Spinning guns around my fingers make me feel good.
Making annoying noises helps you think.
But that's
The
just me.
clackiest gun, that's your favourite.
Yeah,
That little fan that you had on your keyboard for a while.
That was
that
good
you
as
would
well.
just jab your finger into so it would groan.
that's really fun. I just like making noise. Really, I also have a small foil cup that Owen made me before he left. That's still on my desk because it's a really nice little chalice shape, and I could put marble in it, and a small cat that's licking himself. I got from Japan.
You go for £100.
Got in Japan.
Oh, okay.
Not for £100. 100 yen, I think it was, weirdly.
That's almost 8 blocks of cheese. Bobby Ann Mako asks, what is the funniest prank someone has pulled in the PC Gamer office? I'm not really big
Not
on
very pranky, are we?
pranks. No.
I can only think of one, and that's when. This is one of those maybe life lessons about pranks. Ben from Edge came over once and basically sellotaped everything on Martin's desk when Martin used to be my editor to something else.
Yeah.
Chair to the desk and keyboard to the chair and mouse to the side of his monitor and everything else, and changed the desktop wallpaper to a picture of tape. So that after all of the tape had been taken off and everything had been working again, it booted up to just a picture of tape. And
You again.
I was in the office when he did this, and I sort of didn't intervene because, maybe this will be funny. And it was kind of funny. Like, the thought was funny. You laugh at the tape thing. But Martin's just flat annoyance was kind of one of those things that, like, you can convince yourself that this is going to be hilarious and everyone is going to be in on the joke. And then it happens and you're like, oh, God.
All my stuff
My
is
mouse is all sticky now. Yeah.
All of these things were just sticky. His mouse barely worked anymore because it wouldn't slide along the
that's
table.
I'm using that
'cause-
mouse now. I wondered what happened to it.
Who hurt you?
There's some weird gunk on it, and now that completely makes sense.
There was the time we got sent that enormous purple cock from THQ. May they rest in peace.
It's not really
Not really bright.
it's a real death theme throughout this entire podcast, but that's not really a prank.
No, what we did with it, that was the prank. Because Owen was
Go
away. Owen was away, and we propped it under his desk so that it was, it was like, 3 foot long and slightly floppy, but like rigid for most of the shaft. And we propped it
You
up.
get that
on-
18 rating again on iTunes.
Yeah, but literally, this is the last one. If I'm not going to say the word shaft.
When are you going to say it?
Exactly. Exactly.
Everyone has been wondering.
Exactly. Anyway, so we propped it up so that it was not leaning on his chair, but like freestanding underneath his desk in a kind of inevitably going to bump against his legs type of way. And then when he put his legs under the desk, there was a brief kind of like as he put his hand
Not
down
again.
and accidentally gripped the shaft. And then was shocked. That's funny because penis is lol. Basically.
When I was away once, I took all of the things and toys and bits of the accoutrements I had on my desk and put them on his, which was fine. And then I brought most of them back, except he took, for a competition, someone had made a picture of me and melded it or photoshopped it with one of the apes from Planet of the Apes. And Owen left that on his desk. And when I tried to take it away from him and put it back on my desk, he was very protective. So he spent his last time at PC Gamer with a picture of me looking like the guy from Planet of the Apes, just staring at him all the time he works. And he loved it. And it was very sweet of him.
Someone photoshopped my face onto a picture of an old lady and then made it look like a kind of 1920s photo because it was meant to be like a photo of my mum that I'd taken to war with me. And Craig liked it so much he sellotaped it onto the side of his PC at work and just had that for years looking at pictures of me as a woman.
It's quite sweet.
And I was just writing news all the time, and Owen was web editor. He would do things like turn around and say, "Todd, I've got some really fucking important news I've got to post. It's got to go right now. Like embargo's like 20 minutes. Get it up as fast as you can." I was going to send it over you by GChat. Send me over a link. That would be a picture of a giraffe. They did this about every 2 weeks, so I fell for it every time.
Miss you, Owen.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh,
He will be listening.
He will be.
Dale Nash, PI, asks, Pulp Fiction video game, yes or no? No, it's certainly be interesting.
I like the multiple perspectives that entwine. A bit like Walking Dead 400 Days. Does that?
Is it not just a one big fetch quest?
Oh, yeah.
It's a series of different fetch quests.
I want to see the dialogue options you could do when you have the cheeseburger discussion, though. You kind of have the BioWare style dialogue tree. Keep you going.
Yeah. There's only one act of proper gun violence in that movie, though, so video games would struggle.
There is
What's this
the
movie?
sword
Oh, cool.
scene and well, there's in fact I can think of 2 scenes with guns.
Oh, yeah.
Oh well.
Press X to
Maybe.
gimp.
It's actually turn around accidentally.
Ivory Tusk asks, what's your currently favourite simulation game? Any sort of simulator. Mine would probably be Kerbal Space Program, the game about going to space. It's very good.
That is a
It's very
good
cute.
simulation.
'Cause
I
it's-
played a bit of Monster Loves You, which is, I guess, a monster simulator.
Sort of, yeah. It's a life simulator for a
Yeah.
monster, isn't it? Because you start off just on like a single cell amoeba or something like that in a big pool,
It's-
don't you? And you make choices, and those choices determine
Yeah, it's
what kind of
basically
crawls
monster.
out of the slime.
And then you end up, do you want to eat the human or help the human increase monster relations? Then it tells you at the end of your life whether you are a fearsome monster or a nice monster, but or the other monsters hate you or whether they like you and stuff like that. Which I guess is a simulator. in some
It's a
respect.
life
But
simulator.
then again, you
game.
could argue that Rogue Legacy is a life simulator as well. In that,
No.
Because sometimes you're upside down.
yeah, that's how life works.
I think my next simulator is going to be Long Live the Queen, which I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast before.
We have ages ago.
Okay. Yeah, as Princess. Well, I don't know if you're nurturing a princess or something. You're telling her where to go.
You love Princess Maker as well.
Princess Maker's great. Long Live the Queen's a little bit different, but it is also a life simulation game like Monster. It loves you. You're making decisions along a plot path and making decisions about how you spend your time each day, and whether you go to the library or whether you run away from the castle changes various stats. So if you go to the library, then you can study various subjects and increase your knowledge of naval warfare, and that might be helpful at some point in the plot. Or if you run away from the castle for a day, then your willful stat goes up, for example. And then as you're reacting to the different plot points, your stats are taken into account, whether you're successful in what you're trying to do. And you will die repeatedly in that game because it's extremely difficult. But yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, you have to survive 40 weeks until your coronation. I think Long Live the Queen, isn't it?
Yeah.
But people are trying to assassinate you all the time, and you've got enemies and stuff. Yeah, sounds really cool.
Yeah.
I'd say Slave of God. It's my
Is it-
favourite nightclub simulator.
Yeah, that is a very good simulation. I think I've talked before about
Yeah, we
the
have.
bathroom.
The not being able to pee in the... I actually successfully played it through and peed entirely in the urinal.
Well done.
Yeah, I know, and in the game.
Very good.
Okay, it's the last podcast, Jesus Christ.
So we're getting
Tom's
a little
kicking
bit
himself. He's
naughty.
doing that.
Sons of Loki asks, how do I bake the perfect souffle?
I have no fucking clue.
I've never made a souffle.
Really
I know
mine,
it's
isn't it?
about
He's a baking
rising.
champion.
Yeah, Martin is Bake Lord.
He did a class on baking and everything.
He's bread bake lord.
Yeah, but have you done a class on baking?
No, but
Exactly.
I'm good at baking. I was just saying, and maybe Martin doesn't know how to do souffles.
Oh, sounds like another challenge.
Just throw it down.
Gauntlets down there.
Tom, you might randomly know how to make a souffle.
I've watched a lot of Great British Bake Off, and still I don't know how to bake a souffle.
You have to judge a souffle. That's the important thing.
Yeah, not even that really.
No. Eat a souffle?
I've seen them implode. I know they do that a lot. Don't do that.
Yeah,
That's my
basically, if
advice.
you're going to be on Great British
Yeah.
Bake Off, don't make a souffle.
Yeah.
Unless it's souffle week, in which you have to make a souffle.
Look, then throw the rule book out. They can't
I made
control you.
bread.
You're your own baker.
The next person has the best Twitter name I've ever seen, and it's rendered in arrows, which makes it even better. It's up, up, down, down, right, left, BA.
So it's the
And
Konami code.
yes, start. They ask,
Bastard.
would you rather
You're a
keyboard
bastard.
plus mouse or die?
Keyboard and
plus
mouse.
sounds like the better
Yeah.
option
Yeah.
of those.
I agree with
Yeah,
that.
Unless it means like dice.
I think he means die.
I think it is die.
Seems an obvious choice.
More death on the podcast.
Unless he means like a single, yeah.
I use a controller for some games, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah, me
not
too.
one of the options.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's keyboard and mouse all die. And
Yeah, the problem with PC games and options menus, that would be a bad one.
Dan asks, I'm about to upgrade for Company of Heroes 2, and because why not, do I go 32-bit or 64-bit?
64-bit. It's
yeah, sure.
more bits.
Yeah.
32
Twice
more
as
bits.
many bits. It's 100% more bits.
Yeah.
They're actually 32 bits can't use as much RAM.
it can only use up to just under 4, I think. 4 gigabytes of RAM.
I bought 64-bit Windows, I think, for that reason, and it was the same price. So
Yeah.
there you go. Decision made.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just works better.
You want more bits.
Unanimous consent. Paul Brooks asks, what's happening with Spy Party? It looked potentially cool, but I've not heard much for ages. It went into paid alpha, I think, just
Believe so,
last
yeah,
month,
or at least some
didn't it?
form of more open.
Yeah, so you can actually now buy it and go play it. It is taking longer than you might expect it to, given
Yeah.
that we played it 2-3 years ago and it was
And it was
really
fun.
fun then. That's partly, I think, because he spent a lot of time adding new characters and new activities and new levels, and they're changing the art style so that it looks like a good game and not weird. And
Criticism.
And also, he's been taking great pains to balance it so that it can work as an esport, or at least a kind of chess-like strategy game. Like, he wants it to have a lot of depth and nuance in terms of strategies you can do to deceive people and that kind of thing. And so
Yeah.
that's taken a lot of effort to, I
kind of already
think,
did,
balance the thing.
It was already like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's strange to see how long it's taken to get that out, especially given, I don't know, maybe I haven't played it since then, maybe the conceit is now more complicated. But even then, like, when we were playing it, it was still very, the amount, because you were so restricted, the amount of little jukes and jives you could do to make it look like you were doing something was still really high and really interesting, really clever.
Little dukes.
Little Dukes, yeah.
Hot juice.
Hot dukes.
It's the same as like Nidhogg as well. Like I don't know why Nidhogg isn't a paid for now game, because Nidhogg in its form that I played it in for obsessively for weeks was almost fucking perfect. Like that could be an esport right now, except the things that Owen found that would break the game, like the wildebeest or the
Mark Essen, aka Messhoff, the guy who makes that, I think is now finally working towards a proper paid for release, and I think there's a whole bunch of new content in that as well. So
I loved Nidhogg. Fantastic, actually, like utterly kind of psychologically interesting game as well as just
I loved
being
watching it. I loved you and Owen playing each other, and even the way Owen managed to break it kind of added new strategies. And
yeah.
we used to get half our floor crowded around a single computer, all watching two people play that game. I think these are both games which could have been released for a few quid or £5 years ago and would have been great games, but I think they're going to be all the better for the time that's been spent improving.
I just want to play Nidhogg again. I want to play more people because I had so much fun playing it. So
yeah.
And Spy Party as well.
Max Ursa asks, in any multiplayer game, what is your fave dick move, be it griefing and annoying asshat in a shooter or Eve piracy, etc.? Anecdotes? ?
One of my
There's a lot
favourites
of them.
for others is in Minecraft, you've got these little silverfish blocks. They're just like normal stone blocks, and if you tap them, they spawn this horrible little critter thing that freaks me the fuck out because they're just small and they spawn more of them. Cool. And you'll see people who will go into a multiplayer server and replace every stone block in somebody's house with one of these. So if they ever tap anything, they just get swarmed and the house sort of collapses around them as these horrible little creatures kill them over and over again because it's also their spawn point.
This sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's horrid, but also quite funny.
I think the best dick moves don't seriously harm someone's enjoyment. That's also as a griefing people. Like it's not, but it is just the kind of gotcha thing. But I'm not sure if
I always enjoy in Dota when because the 4-staff item lets you hop around, you hop forward. I think like a period of. Chris, I'm not really the exact distance, but like the idea is you generally
800 units.
There you go. You can use it to hop out of trouble if you are like a low mobility character or something like that. But you can also use it on other people to knock them in and out of combat. And quite often, if you're winning or if you're late game, it's quite fun to just do it on one of your teammates and just knock them away from when they're about to get a kill and you're dominating, knock them away so you can come in and get the kill instead. It's quite fun because they don't know they're being jumped until the last second. So
shunting your friend up a cliff. And
so you can stick them places as well if you do it right. So that's always good fun because, like Chris says, you don't want to be
like the serious griefing stuff, like stealing people's items and things in Dota, which is just not cool ever. But yeah, that's fun. I like leaving people behind in Planetside. Like as they're running for the bus,
just
like
stopping, waiting, honking the horn, and driving off again.
Exactly. Yeah. That's fun, making people run. That's hilarious for me.
Also, Planetside as well. But when I watched videos of guys who would get most of their kills by waiting on like the landing pads. At
god,
places,
that's great. Yeah,
and just swooping through at like really low level and just scraping people like in half with the thing. So I do that quite often with Mosquito. Like if there's a base where I know a lot of people are crowded around, you can just swoop straight through opposition team rather than your own. You can do it your own if you want, but it would be a dick. And then being killed by just being run over. It's is it Birgit Paul, the Icelandic guy on YouTube who does funny videos? He got kind of his first few videos of him playing Battlefield, Bad Company, and Bad Company 3, Battlefield 3. He'd be flying around jet and just drop it on people and kill them and just fly off. The idea of just squishing people. It's just kind of
there's been some fun moments in our Minecraft server where people have found AFK admins who just sort of stood in the wilderness by themselves and built things around them, like auctions and like poker games and like random stuff. That's really fun because it doesn't hurt anyone. It's creative and that's cool.
Someone there, I remember reading John's article about running a clan in Battlefield 2, I think, and they used to find snipers and then order in Jeep drops on top of them, and he called it cartillery. Artillery strikes here and there.
Awesome.
That's very, very good.
That's great. James Vokes asks, have you ever had an important save game deleted by someone through accident or on purpose? Is that person dead to you?
Yes, if Steam counts as someone.
Yeah.
Steam is dead to you.
Yeah, Steam's dead to me because it deleted my Plants vs Zombies save. Actually, not dead to me. That was really, really useful of it because I loaded up Plants vs Zombies again, saw that everything that I'd done was deleted, and thought I don't even want to do it again. So that spell was broken.
It set you free.
It set me free. It knew what was best for me.
The worst one I had, it wasn't a save game, but I was in the middle of a StarCraft match and I was having a really bad spell. I was playing as Terran, and I could not beat Zerg at all. Like, for some reason, I just couldn't do it for a long time. And I finally was beating this guy, and I was like conclusively beating him. He was about to GG. I was about to win. And my now wife walks upstairs. So now wife, so it can't be that bad, but she walks upstairs, and it was
quite dead to you.
It was really hot in the room, but I just want to finish the game. And she's like, "Let's open the window in here. It's really hot." And I just like, let me finish this game, and I'll talk to you. I'll do whatever you want. Like, we'll go outside, or go to the shop with you, whatever it is you want me to do. She's like, I need to open the window. Got to open the window in the room. Far too stuffy. What are you doing? Kind of talking to me while I was playing. Couldn't really concentrate. And she walked over to open the window. I said, "Please, just leave it. I'll be downstairs in a second. We'll go outside." And she kicks the plug. She did it. Pulled all of my plugs out of the wall that was attached to like one brick plug. PC shuts down. Or PC just turns off. Monitor turns off. I didn't say a word. Hand still on the keyboard. Hand still on the mouse. I just turned around to look at her, and she looked at me with a face I've never seen before. And then I didn't say a word, didn't move a muscle beyond just looking at her. And she ran away, ran downstairs and locked herself in the bathroom. Oh. And I was like, I then had the reverse effect. It made me feel worse because I felt so terrible that she thought I was going to do something horrendous to her just because she kicked the thing out in the middle of the game. I just went downstairs and was like,
"There's murder in her eyes."
But she still, like, she won't now come in to open windows when I'm playing games because she knows that, you know, I might have this reaction.
She's got a permanent fear of windows.
Yeah, especially now. But it made it worse because she knew StarCraft was StarCraft. Like, she knew this was a game I'd spent almost 1,000 hours playing, and I was actually invested in my ladder rank. She understood all that, but she still wanted to open the window. And then, so yeah, that was the worst.
So is she dead to you?
Well, no, because I ended up marrying her. So
the only one I can think of is playing Neverwinter Nights when I was a teenager and being pretty far in that game. But having, like, I used to be dreadful forgetting to save, and like hadn't saved for like 6 hours, like some crazy amount, like an entire play session from morning to mid afternoon. And my sister, as when I was a teenager, was living at home, and my sister kind of came in and sat next to me and watched for a bit, which she sometimes do. She's younger than me, and there was the keyboard I had one of those like sleep buttons on it that, you know, just switches the computer off, and she just sat there watching, and I think, like, she does this sometimes. She has that kind of like, I'm just going to do one naughty thing. I'm just going to do one thing. You know, just one. And she listens to this, so, you know, Becky, you know, if you're listening, I do remember this. And she just leaned over and just went boop on the power button, like, and the time boof, and shut off. And I lost the save and lost like however many hours of progress. But I don't think I held it against her too much, because when that happened, we both, with no prior prompting or like setup or anything, threw our arms up in the air and in exactly the same voice and exactly the same time. Oh, good Lord!
That guy came.
That would have been in the Bane voice. We're not going to go there. But it at least proved that we were related.
Couldn't kill someone that close to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, good Lord.
Where I think it was pole position on the SNES, which is like a Formula One racing game or something like that. And as you progressed through the career mode, you would earn money that you would use to retool your car and improve your engine and improve all the parts of it. And so I'd been playing this game, and it was my brother's SNES, and he listened to it as well. So hello, Richard. It was his SNES, and I think one of his friends' games. And for some reason, I don't remember why, he deleted my save after I'd been playing it for a week or two or something, so I'd made all this progress. And I was quite young at the time. I don't know what age, but probably like 6 or 7 or 8 or something around that. And I remember I just instantly burst into tears because I'd worked so hard on this. So, but I got over it. It was fine. It was a long time ago. And we used to drive each other mad when we were kids. So he's not dead to me.
Being on the other side of it, I remember accidentally deleting my friend's brother's Harvest Moon save because I was too young to go on the Game Boy, too young to kind of understand. Well, not too young, but I wanted to start my own game, and you couldn't do that. And I was like, what if it's not going to cause me any problems because I don't live here, so I should be okay. It's the selfishness of an only child right there.
Yeah. Tom?
No one's done it to me, but
You do it to everyone else.
no, I haven't done it to anyone else either, as far as I know. But yeah, I had like a formatting my PC last year, and there's so much crap on it. and there were things that were important on it. I made the decision that I was just going to not pick out the things I needed from the things that I was just going to delete it all. So, like, I could spend the next 5 hours of my life going through the file structures, picking out all the bank forms that I probably need, all the save games, all the really important things that I should probably preserve, or I could just fucking delete it and see how my life pans out. So I did that, and it caused me a lot of smaller problems further down the line, but it saved me 5 or 6 hours.
What were the smaller problems down the line? Was it like
just a load of bank passwords and things I should really...
my manuscript? No!
Yeah, some old story ideas and things went. But, if I thought, well, if I can't remember them, they're probably shit anyway. So, they're gone forever. But along with them went my Dragon Age 2 save, which I'd put 50 hours into. And I was in the final act, and I was desperate to play because I loved it. It was brilliant, and really wanted to see how it panned out. But that was gone forever. So I ended up I replayed it all from scratch.
Dragon Age 2,
Dragon Age 2, this is, yeah.
Huh?
I had a problem with Walking Dead as well. I got to the 4th episode of Walking Dead and this one hadn't come out. And I did the same thing. I kind of weighed out between... I used Game Save File Manager to save a few things, like my Witcher save and things like that. But it didn't pick up the Walking Dead save. So I had all these choices that I had to make, and then I had to play through the whole thing. I mean, it's not hugely long, but I had to play through 4 episodes again, making exactly the same choice as I made it before, except maybe changing like one thing, just because I hadn't thought it through. But it's that kind of like toss-up where you're going... I could save everything and remember what I'm doing with my life, but it would be really boring. And it would take quite a long time.
Pretty much it, yeah.
Burp.
So I'm dead to myself now. Yeah. That's conclusion.
It seems only reasonable.
Yeah, quite right.
Harry Tufts asks, how like a roguelike does a roguelike like have to be before it's just like a roguelike?
Like Rogue?
Well,
I've
he's
got,
drawing the
seven-
distinction between roguelike and roguelike-like, which are games that
I
are
like Rogue.
like roguelikes, but not roguelikes.
Yeah.
What would you define as like a
Roguelikes
roguelike? but
are like
not
rogue. A roguelike
Roguelikes
is
are
like
like
roguelikes.
Yeah.
It's all likes all the way down.
But how like a rogue do you have to be a roguelike like?
Like Rogue, like the game Rogue.
Less like Rogue than a roguelike.
This is the most confusing part of the podcast.
Like,
I don't think there's any...
like roguelike.
but FTL,
damn it,
for
I'm so from
example,
Liverpool.
is FTL a roguelike like or a roguelike?
I
Like,
think
it's a
FTL was
roguelike.
just a roguelike.
But then what's a roguelike like? Like something that has an element of that in it?
Like it has permadeath.
But, okay, so it has permadeath, but then FTL, I guess, would then the only thing that it shares with roguelikes really is the permadeath.
But there's also maybe it's like a ish tile-based
Procedural
movement.
generation as
Procedural
well.
generation.
Yeah.
Randomised.
It is
But I
like a
would-
roguelike.
But we need to define our terms here and say what is a roguelike.
I
Then
can't
what is
think
a
of
roguelike
any
like?
game that I would describe as a roguelike rather than a roguelike.
Is that just
I would-
because the term is horrible and should never be used?
Well, yes, there's that. But, if it's a roguelike then it's a roguelike.
It is. Yeah, by definition,
It
it's a
means
bit.
the same thing.
I think
it's
that-
maybe further away from the rogue
It's a
template.
roguelike with a
So,
kind of element of that.
Rogue Legacy has certain elements, like when you die, the character... Such as when you die, the character is gone. But then it's not quite permadeath because there's lots of persistent bits in terms of what
I
you
would call
unlocked
it-
in your
I did call it roguelike.
and your equipment. Yeah, but you would still call it a roguelike. You
Rather
wouldn't say
than a-
it's so far removed it's a roguelike. Like,
No.
if it's so far removed from Rogue that it's now no longer a roguelike, it shouldn't be a roguelike. Like, we just need another
Should be a
word
game
to
with
describe it.
roguish
we might
elements.
need ways of
yeah.
quickly explaining differences of severity.
I don't think roguelike
Like-
like is ever quickly though.
No, exactly. But
Rogue-
like
rogue,
because
rogue.
you can say this is
This
I
is
think
a
rogue
roguish.
should be precise, though. If it takes
Roguish.
one element from
Dirty and
rogue,
nasty.
then you should just say what that element is. I
yeah,
don't think
it
you
is an
need to-
RPG with permadeath.
Yes.
Right? Like because you've got like NetHack, which I would say is the most like roguelike.
Yeah.
Most likely.
But then you get steps of way further in that until the genre changes, but principles stay the same. Like we should just use specific language rather than
This is why PC Gamer doesn't say gameplay.
yeah. This is why PC Gamer doesn't say gameplay. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Well-
actually describing something is more effective than appending a word to it that doesn't actually mean anything. But I also hate MOBA.
I really hate MOBA as well.
What's the one that you like? Lord management?
No, Lord Management's the Idle Thumbstick.
The idea of just Lord management.
It's a really
You're doing a Lord.
Actually,
It's the best name.
Like, yeah, I mean,
for
this is an Idle Thumbs running joke, but it is actually a really good name for that genre because Lord is not a term that's associated with hero in any games. Like hero is a Dota term, champion is the LoL term,
Yeah, yeah.
etc. I like lane pushing game. LPG because it is the one thing that's true of all of them.
But so much of it is not pushing the lane, though. Every time I play with you, you're like, don't push the lane!
I mean, well...
But the ultimate objective is
to push the lanes.
push the lane.
Like, it's the one thing that's common to that and Smite and all these other games, regardless of perspective, is there are lanes and you push down the lanes. Whether or not it's always optimal to be pushing the lane is kind of something that can be distinct between the games. I like LPG as the word for
I just like the Lord management. It's just a
Lord pushing game.
I like the idea that you are somewhere there is a Lord and you won't eat his dinner and you have to make him eat his dinner. You have to put his clothes on him because he's a really willful little Lord and he won't do what he's told.
See, you like the game that's in your head now, but not the game the rest of us are talking about.
It's like Princess Maker.
You want the Lord version
Princess Management game.
Yeah, Lord Maker.
Lord Maker.
PMG.
Lord Pusher.
Do this, Lord.
Michael Blatherwick asks, what has the internet got against Chris? Is it because he's a halfling?
Actually, no, it's almost everything but that.
It's like the first half of that, like that first question was said with concern, and that second question was said with mockery.
Yeah, well, I mean, actually, I think I did make that joke myself about being a halfling because I was in a photo standing next to Martin. We were from Tom's Gunpoint Party, where we
Hobbit
are
Squad.
Yeah, we are. I mean,
Hobbit Squad.
Marsh and I are moving in together later in the year into hopefully a slightly underground house with a big round door, and that'll be the end of it, really.
I'll never see you again.
But yeah, the internet, if you weren't aware last week, has it out for me because I accidentally announced Half-Life 3. So that's probably the only thing where the word half does come into it.
You should define your terms.
I wrote a back page all over, which I'll link in the show notes.
The joke page.
The joke page at the back of PC Game is the final page of the issue. It is when we use the bottom half of it to announce what's coming next in the next issue, what we hope to be having the next issue, and the rest of it is a gag based on something in the magazine. And because that was
to redefine, that's a joke page.
Joke page, 100% lies. You know, we've previously put the Deus Ex skill system onto Thief and all these other, at the time, hilarious things. And
Still hilarious.
And but in this case, I did Valve's elevator, and a lot of different jokes in it. But one of them was a crossed out entry on floor 13, which doesn't exist in America, for Half-Life 3. The entire joke, which isn't even a very good joke, being the Half-Life 3 doesn't really exist anymore. Or it's kind of become lost in this.
It's now the
limbo.
FPS developer terrarium.
Yeah.
But also the 13th floor thing being also a point that there is no 13th floor, so there is no Half-Life 3.
Exactly. But due to various combinations of timing and the internet, I say the internet, I don't want to blame all of you.
Just most.
A lot of people who really wanted to be Half-Life 3 decided that this was somehow part of an ARG, that I was in on it with Valve.
Also, the button in the lift was pressed on 13, so it was a little red.
No, it wasn't. They all had red circles around them.
Really?
Yeah. They all had red circles around them. Yeah. But they found a Valve's developer profile who their Steam account was level 13, and if your Steam level is a number in a red circle, and that was because it was floor 13 and level 13, there was these amazing memento-style diagrams of how this worked. And to be honest, it's actually a really good example of how the human mind is capable of constructing a conspiracy from random sets of events. Really, if you want to understand the basis of religion, you should look at how this functions.
There was a point as well in this whole thing where I think it seemed that even you were like, what if I have done this? Invaded my brain.
It was so convincing.
It was when the Surgeon Simulator ARG kicked off, whatever that was actually for, that I realised that Valve might have actually been doing something that I knew. I mean, obviously I knew that I had nothing to do with it.
Did you?
But again, what happened was I tweeted to say, oh my God, people have actually taken this seriously. And maybe I was a bit flippant, but that was taken to mean that I was laughing at the fact that people would take this thing seriously. And I got a lot of abuse for about a whole day and a half of just streams of people. I made a word cloud out of it at the end, but the most common thing was like, how dare you play with our feelings? This isn't something you're allowed to joke about. You are literally worse than Hitler. A lot of the word fuck. Lot of
someone say you were also as bad as Todd Howard?
Yeah, I was worse than Hitler, and no, as bad as Hitler, and literally worse than Todd Howard, the designer of Skyrim. I'm not sure what that means, but
fall somewhere in between those.
I learned that day that Half-Life 3 is serious business and not to be joked about, or else.
I think if you look at that page and you fail to understand it's a joke, you're going to find life difficult.
Yeah, I get the people really excited about this and they feel a bit let down by Valve that it's taking so long if they are indeed working on it. But a guy on the Half-Life subreddit did say that if he met me in real life, he would find it hard not to strangle me to death. And I think that's probably
That's an appropriate response.
that's a
It's
moment
really
to address your priorities
That's
in life.
sane.
My favourite one of these is when World of Warcraft Cataclysm was
God, this is amazing.
was on the verge of coming out, and we did a back page which was imagining a future where Cataclysm was such a big success it inspired expansion packs to other games, and there were 3 games on there. Football Manager Cataclysm, which had a football pitch with a huge tear through the middle of it. Plants vs Zombies Cataclysm, which had zombies walking up to a canyon and kind of going, well, it can't go any further. And The Sims 3 Pets Cataclysm, which was the biggest one and had pictures of, literally, pictures of dogs and cats falling into a giant rift in the ground while their owners, tried to catch them. And a certain Sims 3 community on the internet scanned that page and put it up and thought it was real. And, oh my God, PC Gamer's going to reveal the Sims 3 pets at the next, when they didn't notice the fact that this was a picture of little puppies and kittens falling off a cliff face.
Yeah. Just when you kind of reevaluate a lot of existence when these kind of things happen.
Just going to leave that hanging there.
Yeah, like a puppy on the edge of a ravine. It's the I want to believe impulse, even though it's dumb.
Let's count all the holes in the elevator.
Oh God, that's amazing.
That was
Because it was an elevator. Because it was an elevator panel. It had like a speaker grill, and the speaker grill literally was drawn by one of our art editors, Julian, and like the fact that there were so many holes in it, just that was how many
space there was in the page.
Yeah, how much space we needed to fill, and someone actually wrote this kind of whole like mathematical breakdown of the rows and the number of holes and what they could mean, and then used that as the basis of a Google search and actually tracked down Half-Life save, that because old Half-Life saves are like .hl, .hl1, .hl2, .hl3, found that as proof that Half-Life 3 exists, in that 3 is the number that comes after 2 in a list.
And HL were there as well.
Extraordinary. Sorry if anyone listening to this has actually already been privy to this saga, but it was a hell of a week.
It was pretty funny.
It was very
for
funny,
everyone
yeah.
in the office.
The thing that disappoints me, actually, and I'll say this now, is we did I wrote like an open letter about it on the net, basically to get people to stop being, and also basically to say like, no, I'm not fucking about it. Genuinely, this isn't a thing. And I took a photo of Julian's desk with the visible InDesign document to prove like this is just where it was made, right? And I didn't realize until after I'd taken that photo that there's one PC Gamer cover visible in the corner of the shot, and it's a sort of compilation issue we did. And the front cover, and you can just see him poking over the edge of a folder, is Gordon Freeman's face, just in the corner of the shot. And I thought that's like the worst thing I've ever done in my entire life, because if they're counting the number of holes in the speaker grill, someone's going to pick up on this and think that I'm like deliberately leading them on. Yeah. And I kind of was, because I noticed it before I put it up, but no one picked up on it, which is a huge shame.
Still, we're kind of
So
dismayed
basically,
at people's stupidity, but then also disappointed that it stopped.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, okay. Pierce Moran asks, hey, with all the new open world style games about to be released, GTA, Saints Row and Batman, etc., do you think open world needs a new USP to keep gamers interested, or is it never going to get old? USP being unique selling point.
And the gun in Counter-Strike.
Yes. Also a gun in Counter-Strike.
It needs one of them.
Definitely, yes, all of these games.
All these games need the
I am
USP.
properly, uncritically excited about Saints Row 4.
Yeah, me too.
I loved their trailers.
With you there.
And like I'm a fan of a well-executed absurdity curve, and they're adding lots of things mechanically to that game, like superpowers and a dubstep gun and all the rest of this stuff. But honestly, I'm just happy for that to be a funny thing that some people made, and like they don't need to change the formula of running around a city completing tasks.
They're definitely not. Because it was originally started as an expansion pack to Saints Row 3, and it was one of THQ's last-ditch efforts to make money was to bump it up into a full sequel and get it out the door as quickly as possible, basically. And now it's Koch Media, I think, that have picked it up, and so they're, I think, spending a bit more time
Deep
polishing.
Silver. Are they the same?
It's Deep Silver that are taking it, yeah.
Okay, so Deep Silver then have
Mission,
picked
I
it
think
up.
they're called now.
I think they've spent time polishing it up and making it robust, but it is still the same engine, and I think reusing a lot of assets from Saints Row 3.
It uses the same city, albeit the virtual version of it,
Yeah.
the virtual version of it. That's
Which is totally okay for that
absolutely.
kind of game, is the thing.
Yeah, it's probably the definition of not actually expanding it too much. But
I think that's the previous question though, that like we in the latest issue we're talking about in the Monitor News section, we're talking about how everything in the next generation of console games is going to be open worldy shooty or open worldy drivey, and Graham's hiding behind his microphone stand and popping out occasionally. It's been a long
pop
podcast, and but yeah, I think some of these things do need it. The Division looks fun. It's not out on PC definitely yet, but they have kind of the sensation of almost like a mini MMOE style thing. But I got bored of GTA, apart from multiplayer, and I think I'll get bored of just running around a city over and over again, especially given that size seems to be the biggest USP, and I just get frustrated if I can't easily get around a place. And just making things bigger isn't really enough for me, I think.
But the thing is, like, all of these games are doing strange things. Like Saints Row obviously adds a whole bunch in terms of, hey, you're now a president superhero in a virtual reality fighting
And you're
aliens to go to
naked.
space.
Yeah, but that's kind of front loaded it there, but that's the one that's doing the strangest thing.
But and Grand Theft Auto now has 3 protagonists, and you can switch between them at a moment's notice whenever you feel like. So the fact it's a much larger world, if you get bored in one area, you just flick over to another and do a different mission. And there's points in the storyline where those missions will converge in interesting ways. It's just quite cool. I don't know what the next Batman game is doing, really. Arkham
I like the
Origins.
detective stuff. That looks really cool, like the CSI style.
Is it different from old detective mode?
They showed a thing at E3 where a helicopter gets sort of shot down right in front of Batman, and then he uses the Bat computer through his HUD to like recreate the crime scene so that you can fast forward and reverse it, like as a holographic version overlaid on real life, and find the points where different things happened and like lock in, and solve the crime by like running a simulation to find where a crucial bit of debris would have landed, and then you can go and find it in the actual game. So that kind of thing sounds fun, just as
I guess it's the thing then, that's the question, that I think they do, an open world is not enough on its own anymore to do. You need to have something, because the things that we're interested about in these games aren't the city, they are the dubstep gun or the detective thing or the many characters.
I think it's always stuff to do. It's you never really shake that principle of running around a big open world and doing things to its foundation. You just introduce a new traversal mechanic, Just Cause's parachute grapple hook thing that changes the way you think about that environment, even if the principle of the game doesn't change. Like that seems to be the way to do it. Like, the superhero stuff in New Saints Row doesn't look very different to Prototype, but combined with everything else that game is doing is what makes it attractive.
very different to Saints Row
really funny.
the third, which was just, you've got all this ridiculous stuff going on, but you want to get to a place, you get in a car and drive there. That game.
I'd actually just started playing Saints Row the third over again, and that game is still really funny.
I love the introduction. The first hour, an hour and a half, is just
extraordinary.
amazing.
So well written.
All the way through.
And I love that there's a great line in. I love that they're sending up Mass Effect with all the trailers for the new one, because they've got Keith David playing Keith David, even though he played a character in Saints Row 1. But there's a great line, and this is exactly maybe my sense of humour, but there's a great line in the trailer they put out a few months ago for E3, which is them saying like, so what are we going to do? And so he says, no, like, what's our plan? And a character says, we're going to get the team back together and we're going to kick some ass. And he goes, that's not a plan, that's a goal. Grammar humour makes me laugh. So yeah, it's like, it's a dumb game in a lot of ways, but when someone, that one line is cleverer than anything in Sleeping Dogs. So
When's it? Oh, it's out really soon, isn't it?
August
August
23rd.
There we go. Wow, you guys are
Mine
excited about it.
Yes.
Mr. Reason asks, do you think GOG would benefit from a non-DRM client to keep your games nice and tidy on your PC, or at least the option?
I have so many clients for various things now.
It doesn't really...
It's got a website shelf. That's fine.
It's executable. It's one of
doesn't
them.
feel like it would make it more tidy.
It's kind of against the spirit of the thing, but every time I download a game from GOG, I just put it through Steam anyway and just play it that way, because then I have it in one place. So.
Not
And
really.
then get Steam overlay in case anyone wants to play Dota. That's really important.
Yeah, I guess that is your optional client then.
But then that's
tidy.
not non-DRM, I guess. The people who are really non-DRM wouldn't be...
But if you've bought it through GOG, then you've still got the non-DRM version.
true.
So if Steam dies, then you've still got the game. Stephen Colfer asks, today I finished a Total War campaign after years of trying. What games are you bad at but also love?
Total was a really good example of
Yeah,
that for me,
Total.
actually. Mostly because I don't have the patience for the real-time strategy element of it. Like, I know all the tactics I'm supposed to do, and like, okay, let's get the pikemen to attack these horses here. Let's get this company charging and flanking over here. Let's wait for that to all happen. Let's tap fast forward a bit. And now it's happening really quickly, and the fight's over. Did I win? No, my entire army's dead.
I don't think Total was a really good example. I don't think I've ever won a Total War campaign.
Armour and DayZ for me were two that I kind of I love the concept of them, and Eve as well. I love the concept. I love reading about them.
Eve.
But it's just a case of like I get into it and I'm like, okay, cool things happen now, and then you realise that you have to put in the effort to make the cool things happen. And someone else do it.
Eve isn't a game I'm bad at, though. Like, that's the question. What games are you bad at, but also love? And
Yeah, so that's what I
Bad
keep coming
at
back
is
to.
a level of kind of I don't know. I mean, there's also you to push yourself into.
Which
it.
you're not going to admit to being bad at anything.
I know I'm bad at like armor, and I'm terrible at DayZ because I just. But there's a level of the patience as well. Means if you've not got the patience, you will just be bad because you will just run stupid places and do stupid things. And in DayZ, I'd run and think, fuck that. I'm not going to crawl through that forest for ages to get to that place to maybe get a gun. I'm just going to run straight in and think I can outrun the zombie, which is empirically bad idea.
no.
Especially when they ping pong around the server because it's
lag about.
Tom?
Can't really think of one. I've played so much Total War, and I've had campaigns where I've just been disastrously moronic with every decision I've made. If you think you make a series of bad decisions in Empire, for example, which is my favourite one, then you're fucked, not just locally but internationally. Cause internationally screwed because there's such knock-on effects from piracy and trade routes, and if a trade port falls in India, then you can't build this cannon in London, which means you can't take on this stronghold
like the reverse
in
of the
the
butterfly.
Americas. Yeah, but I love watching those ripples of disaster kind of wash across the globe.
Having said that, I mean, the two games that I've probably played the most in my entire life, StarCraft and Counter-Strike, I was never really very, like, I'm Gold League standard at StarCraft. I occasionally tipped into Platinum, but that's not very good given how much I played it. And Counter-Strike, I've never had anything above like a 1-1 kill death ratio, I think, in all the years I probably played it. But I'd still go back to them because it was...
You suck.
Yeah, I know. But I loved it.
It's all coming out now.
Wow, I'm great at this
People
stuff.
know. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of games which you can be bad at, and that's okay. It's fun to lose. It's fun to lose in Dwarf Fortress. Losing is fun. That's why it's the tagline.
Therapist Graham.
Yes.
It's okay to lose.
It's okay, Rich. It's okay to lose. Keith Mitchell asks, do any of you PC game on your main TV, or do you still use desktop monitor setup? I'm a desktop monitor setup myself, but occasionally I do drag my PC through to the living room and hook it up to my TV if there's, if I'm bored and no one's around at the weekend.
I have a TV next to my PC, so connecting it's just a case of plugging it in, but I still don't really do it.
Also, it's occasionally so that you can go during Total games, and it sounds like you're just watching Gross's Bodies or whatever on Channel 4.
Yeah, it's alright that way. But yeah, Dead Space I played on TV because I just fancied sitting down in the beanbag and playing it with a controller. But afterwards, I realised it was a bit fiddly, and then went back to playing it on my screen.
Yeah, I played a bit of The Witcher 2 on a TV screen. All the text was visible. Couldn't see what it was doing. The combat's already quite sloppy in that game. Anyway,
Was it not an HD TV? Was it?
it was an
an
HD
old-
TV, but it was
Was
just like
it?
it just wasn't like you had to sit really close to it. And I was thinking about the translation from PC box to screen, just obliterated all the text. So yeah,
I'd like to try again properly though, and have a setup that was easier to flip between with the big picture mode now.
Yeah, I haven't done it since Big Picture mode. And
Things
it,
like,
does, it is tempting.
Joe, I'd love to play a game of DEF CON on a TV for some reason. Just like have the
It's
map
like a
in front
proper
of us.
war room.
Yeah, that's right.
Projected
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That would be great.
I played Grid 2 on my monitor and spent the entire time thinking that I should really put it on TV because it'd be a lot easier, but then never really got onto it because it's
Yeah, I
fiddly.
played a lot of the grids. No, the Dirts, even on
I always
The,
get
the dirty grid.
Dirt 3 was on Big Picture a lot. That one works quite well. For other games, not as great because you'll be flicking through the menu. Oh, I really want to play, say, Batman or whatever, and you'll click on it, and a big pop-up will come up saying options, configure, play, and you've got to get up and go over because they never work with the controller. So you've actually got to stand up and go over to the desk and move the mouse.
like all the
think, wow,
wireless
this isn't-
keyboard solutions have had all wireless mouse things have never ever worked for me. They've always been laggy
Yeah,
and
yeah.
horrible, and I can't sit on the couch and use them, so it's been pretty useless.
I don't currently, but I'd like to get a laptop with a TV out just so I can stream Dota to the TV.
Yeah, that's what like MLG stuff would be awesome.
For people who are watching over your shoulder to enjoy, or
Yeah. I mean, make it a
be awesome. A sporting
communal
event.
thing. That's
That-
I used to do that with when I was
get people round. No one will come, but
I was watching GSL, like when I used to little like mini gym in my loft, and you work out in there while watching. Put that through an old TV that I had up there.
Meant mini Jim like a little person.
Mini Jim who lives in
Lives in the
Richmond.
loft.
Just hang out with him, and play.
He's a weird guy, but he lives in my loft. No, and then
working out with Mini Jim.
yeah. But doing that was okay, and you put it through a big TV and you watch GSL that way.
You put Mini Jim through a big TV.
Yeah, he's only little. He fits through easily. Force him through a fine wire mesh.
TV.
It's been a long podcast.
Yeah.
Lewis Roberts asks, "What is your favorite fourth wall breaking moment in games?" That's a good question because I don't
Saints
really
Row 3's got a load of fourth wall stuff. It's like bit in the opening gunfight where you're fighting waves of cops and they're just like,
Oh, that's a really good one.
it's like, oh, wave 3, we've got to wait one more.
No, it's like,
Comment on
how long is it
voices.
going to take for the helicopter to get here? About 2 waves of SWAT guys.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
really
really
good.
does get there.
Yeah, yeah.
Sort of guys.
The reverse one, the worst one is the Assassin's Creed 2 one, where
Oh god.
Space Apple Jesus woman looks at you and goes,
Oh, yeah.
"Hello,
Yeah.
player." And you're like,
No, she
"What,
says, "Hello,
me?"
Desmond."
Oh yeah, but I guess you're meant to be Desmond.
It's not really fourth wall, it's a wall. But not the fourth wall.
We've broken some wall.
third wall.
There's a lot of walls in Assassin's Creed. I thought you were going to say that It's a Me Mario.
Yeah, that's
right.
That's more fourth wall breaking. So,
I it's kind of lame now in retrospect, but when I was a little kid, I really loved the moments when Monkey Island would break the fourth wall, like the phone you could find that went to the LucasArts tip line, or Guybrush remarking about how he'll never buy a game for $40 again, or something like
or
that.
the Grim Fandango reference in Monkey Island 3. Reminds me about Grim Fandango.
The dead skeleton with the
Yeah, I'm
bun.
trying to think. Otherwise,
And they
There's
were
a
as
load
good
of
as Will
Metal Gear
Smith
Solid
talking to the
fourth wall
camera.
stuff. But
Yeah, actually,
That's
true.
it's the ultimate
one for it,
meta
yeah.
frenzy.
I do really like Metal Gear Solid. I only played 2 through for the first time like last year, and the bit towards the end when you're running through the thingy and what's his face, the AI guy is breaking up,
Oh yeah.
and he's saying weird things to you, and that's genuinely quite
Quite,
unsettling.
yeah, it's
still.
good. It's really good.
there's a lot of good stuff in like Blizzard RTSs as well. If you click units enough, there's a lot of kind of
They
little
blow up the seals and stuff like that in Warcraft.
or like
You
just
click
the
them and
lines, the voice lines for like that start to refer to the fact that they're being clicked on a lot, whatever that kind of thing.
and the
That's always
Tasteless
fun.
and Artosis bot, the Tasteless bot that's now in some of the multiplayer levels.
Yeah.
But I guess that's it's hard to break the fourth wall with no particular story in the multiplayer, but it's nice little nods to the community.
Yeah.
Coccyx asks the last ever PC Gamer podcast question.
Man, that's sad, man.
That's the end of the
Sometimes I do the last
road.
post on Bugle.
If you could go back in time and kill Hitler, but that would somehow result in the internet never being invented, would you?
Fuck yes. No internet.
Great. You'd be free.
I
You'd be
would-
free
I
at
would-
last.
Lack of
I would-
controversy.
I
That's
would
what
no,
I'm about to.
I would kill Hitler not only for the many millions of innocent lives that would hopefully be saved, but also to save magazines.
We know what happens if you kill Hitler, don't we? Red Alert happens.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
Stalin takes
Stalin,
over and
that's it.
becomes more powerful.
yeah,
Then
there was no
what
internet now though.
emerges.
They never mentioned the internet. There's giant ants.
There was LAN play though.
There was, yeah. So that's it. The future is just a giant LAN. Everyone's on the giant LAN. There you go. That's how we get past it. Everyone's on the giant LAN. It's not called the internet. It's called Interlan.
I could probably kill Hitler and then create the internet myself, or at least have enough of the.
To
Do you
describe
think that's
the
against the
internet.
spirit of the
Sure
question?
I
enough
do
of it
think
there,
that's
aren't
against
you?
the spirit of the question.
Okay,
I could
so
kill
we're
Hitler
just
and
saying,
invent the internet.
Yeah.
but I could make my own
Doctor Who
internet.
of Twitter questions.
Hookers and blackjack. No, I would go back.
I
and
think
kill
they're already
Hitler.
on the
I
internet.
think
Hookers and blackjack.
I think anyone who says otherwise is probably a terrible person, and we should run away really quickly.
The
Phil,
only-
what do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, you kill Hitler.
Go on,
That does put me out of a job.
Well, no, we're just like,
Look, you can have a
magazine
job as
teams
the
will
guy who
confuse.
killed Hitler.
That's true, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You don't need to work together.
I thought you meant like
Just say that on your business card. Like,
Your job was
Phil
kill
Savage killed Hitler.
to the
I'll
talk
take
show
that.
circuit, TV would still be much more popular than it is now. No piracy of on a
course.
mass scale of TV programs.
I think it would be a.
There'd be
I
no
mean,
programs.
I'm not going to lie. I think it would be a dark world without the internet, but it would also be a lighter world without Hitler.
So there's swings and roundabouts. Really.
Yeah.
When are we killing Hitler?
That's a good point.
Hitler's whole thing. Or,
Oh yeah, no, if it was after.
So, no, we're doing it afterwards.
It's like you can go back in time to 1945.
give him the
2
gun.
minutes
the shotgun.
before.
He would have otherwise killed himself, and then you kill Hitler.
I think
No.
he'd still be alright with that. He's still got TV appearances. He'd still be, I still killed Hitler.
No, but that's
Yeah, it's good for you. But,
Yeah,
like,
okay.
you just destroyed the internet so you could be famous. And sorry,
But it's fine.
shame about all them people.
You're reinventing the internet anyway, as is, so we should be okay.
Well, I'm just great.
I think we'd all kill Hitler.
I'm glad we've come to that consensus. at
Yeah.
least. After all this time.
And to
after
be
so
honest,
many
if there was
episodes.
If
ever
the 93 episodes of podcast have been worth anything,
I would then kill Stalin immediately after to stop Red
to
Alert
stop Red
happening.
Alert.
But doesn't Yuri take over if that happens?
Yeah, I'll kill him as well. If I can kill Hitler through time, I can kill Yuri through time, and I can
He's
kill
psychic.
Stalin. Yeah, but I'm time traveling. Go back to
so
the
was
time.
Einstein.
Yuri isn't real. Like, Stalin and Hitler are, but we're not actually saying that this is taking place
But
within
Rich-
the Red Alert
But
timeline.
Rich is killing Stalin to prevent Red Alert from happening.
Yeah, but that's only Yuri still doesn't technically exist. And if he does, he might be psychic. But if he's 2 years old, he's not going to be able to stop me, is he?
You reckon you could take a 2-year-old psychic baby?
Yeah, if I had a gun and a time machine.
Yeah.
I mean, psychic only means he knows what's going to happen. It doesn't mean that he can.
He has
like,
mind
he can-
powers.
but
control
he's not going
powers.
to telekinetically make me shoot myself. He's actually maybe he will.
He might just
You're saying-
telekinetically
you're saying
make
that
you
you're gonna
rocking back
shoot
and
a
forwards
baby.
all day.
If I'd already shot Hitler and Stalin, assuming they're probably
Yeah,
quite young,
but Hitler and Stalin, bad people.
So you saying you're shooting baby Hitler?
baby Yuri. This is a whole question about determinism and whether people become what they're born to become.
I'm not sure it is.
So
what
you're
if you
going to shoot
adopt
baby
Yuri?
Hitler?
What if you adopt a? Yeah, but I'm not adopting a psychic child. He'll kill me eventually, probably, because he's Yuri.
Unless you kill him first.
Exactly.
He'll be able to look into your mind and find out what you did
Why
to
is it
Hitler.
okay to kill Hitler and Stalin when they were?
Well-
I'm assuming that you're killing them when they're quite young, so nothing bad
you
can
don't
happen.
need to kill them when they're babies. Hitler
can
was
wait
an
a few
adult
years.
for a long period of time.
Right, but if Hitler had psychic powers that meant that when he got to about 10 years old, he could probably kill you.
To be
too.
honest, I don't
not
want to be too,
Kira.
I don't
It's
want,
not like-
I don't want to be too mercenary
secret.
about this, but the optimum time to kill Hitler is not when he's young. It's like 1935
When he's in the First
when
World War.
he's obviously a menace
But he's-
on the
the
world
cult
stage.
personality means
People
that-
know who he is, but the worst shit hasn't happened yet, because then you can be the guy who killed Hitler, not that time traveling guy who murders babies.
The baby.
The problem is,
PR man.
Getting that
Because,
business card.
we're all innocent when we're young, Rich. Like you would just be the, it's not going to be on your business
The-
card.
the best
that you
time to
killed.
kill
Killing
him.
killing them in 1935, though, surely has terrible political repercussions.
It does, 'cause
because Germany
you
was
get
already at a
Goebbels
point
would
where
just
it
rise
was
to the
feeling
power.
disenfranchised and was looking for a strong leader. And if you swoop in and kill
He'd
their
be a hero
strong
forever.
leader, then
You may
Hitler
well-
becomes a martyr.
the time to
and-
kill them both is
I
World War
don't
One.
think you can conjecture too much on that, but okay, maybe.
There's a lot of alternate
Okay.
history novels that go like you kill them both in World War One. They both served in World War One. You would say, oh, they got shot by a man on the opposition team
So
in
you
World War
forsake that's maybe a good balance. You forsake the I killed Hitler card, but
make
likewise
it
you're
look
not
like an
actually
accident.
murdering, right? You're
Yeah.
not killing a child.
Because if you kill
Which is
Hitler,
for
you
the
would just have a mini Hitler who's probably more tactically sound. Hitler's major problems with the fact that he was quite shit at generalship. So if you had someone else to take the power, then maybe we would be in a worse situation right now.
You're saying that we're better off leaving Hitler alive.
No, I'm saying we're
'cause
about killing
there
him
are worse
earlier on.
alternatives.
Earlier on. Kill him as a baby.
No.
Which is all for killing babies now.
Well, this is a terrible note on which to end.
93 episodes of podcasts that
Terrible,
miss
terrible
terribly.
insight into Rich's soul.
Psyche, yeah.
I should stress
Unravel.
Try and recover this, Chris.
there is no. I'm pulling back.
Go back in time and
hard
kill
on
me
the-
when I'm
Before we enter the studio.
literally to save the internet from this.
Doesn't that happen in one of the later Red Alert games? Don't they go back and
killed.
stop
Because Einstein goes
Einstein
mad.
from doing it?
The Japanese rise? And there are robots?
Yeah, and then dolphins appear and they
Like
can.
the robots.
Well,
Dolphins
the dolphins
exist
turn up
anyway.
pretty early.
Dolphins have been around for a while.
Kill the first dolphin.
Yeah.
Stop everything. Nothing
Really
happens.
bored on a planet with nothing to do. You killed all the babies.
It's almost like we don't want this to end.
Oh.
Yeah.
Game, should we talk about,
If you have enjoyed listening to this podcast,
or indeed
This,
a previous podcast, perhaps?
as much as we have enjoyed recording them, we are hoping to, in fact, planning to continue doing podcasts of some kind in our spare time, just because we like it. We can't justify the time or resources it takes to do this during work hours anymore, because as you can tell, it's mostly just for lols. But we can bundle into Martin's graveyard and do stuff late at night, because that's what we're into.
Yeah, and
You should define again the terms. What is
you're
it?
underselling this quite dramatically.
Bundle it to might going to be able to do things is less of a thing than there is a new podcast.
There will be a new podcast, and if you go to crateandcrowbar.com, there will be information there about it when there's information there about it.
Hopefully there'll be a placeholder up by the time this podcast goes live. It's just it will still be about PC games, which, like,
Yes.
it will be broadly similar in format.
And there will be little to no necromancy, despite the
Little
fact
to
you're in.
necromancy, maybe.
Or baby murdering, I hope.
And
So do I.
yeah, I mean the easiest way to find out about this is to follow us on Twitter.
And we'll put links to all our Twitter names in the show notes, and we'll read them out now for fun.
Yeah, well, I think we should because
Yeah.
not everyone's going to read the show notes. But
What's your Twitter handle?
at C Thurston, which is my initial and surname. THURT. Fucking how do I spell my name?
Yeah.
CTHURSTEN.
Phil?
At Octaeder, OCTAEDER.
At Gonas, GONNAS.
At PCG Ludo, which is PCG LUDO.
I'm at RichMCC, which is RICHMCC.
I'd like to also say thank you to everyone who's. I had a lot of messages, kind of heartbreakingly recently, about from people who like the podcast and hopefully get it and have stuck with it. Actually, and I mean, I've done 30 of these now, and I've really loved doing it, and it's been a pleasure. I'm really sad to see it go, but I'm really hopeful that we can.
We'll be back.
We'll be back. We'll ride again in one form or another.
Yes. There will always be more PC games.
We'll always be saying the words, "What have you been playing?" and then talking about something else for half an hour.
Yeah.
The dream never dies.
Thank you for listening, everyone. Goodbye.
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 And that's the end of that.
Jeez.
Oh, it is sad.
We're going to have to be careful around you and babies.
As long as you're not a baby.
I'm not sure whether that was us going out on a high or finally crashing this thing into the sun.
Yeah, it's
the
a
highest
good
way to do it.
lasting impression. You're never going to be able to correct now.
I think everyone's stand by me.
Alright.
Maybe hit like my sky.
Bye, podcast.
Oh,